Gwen calmed down first, and said, "Tell me first, do you have anything to tell me?" Peter took advantage of the situation and said, "Are you free after get off work? I would like to treat you to a meal. There are many things to trouble you during the next 3 months of internship." "No problem. We're all classmates, and it's right to help each other, so there's no need to treat guests to dinner." Gwen shook her head and declined politely. At the same time, she was also surprised, because she also had the idea of asking Peter for help just now. The coincidence of the two made this thought that had just passed by gradually gain the upper hand. This made Gwen make up his mind and suggested, "Why don't Peter do this? Let's go to the company's cafeteria to eat. My work card still has several meals, and it's about to expire. I just need your help with something." Peter naturally agrees very much. There is one thing that really needs Gwen's help. After having her experience, he can avoid a few detours. On the other hand, he is also curious about what he said. Since Gwen still needs to go to the company's personnel department later, Peter also needs to return to Harry's office, and the two agreed to meet in the lobby on the first floor. Peter took the elevator back the same way, and came to the office on the top floor. He opened the door and saw that there was no one inside. Harry had disappeared, and he felt like he had been away for a while. He took out his mobile phone and called Harry, but no one answered. Based on the previous situation, it should be inferred that the mobile phone should be turned to silent mode to work. Thinking of this situation, Peter, who had just sat down, decided not to wait any longer. He picked up the backpack placed on the bar and carefully checked whether all the required items were complete. He didn't want to make another trip due to carelessness. After all, the distance from Queens to the Osborne group is still too far. It is really difficult for Peter, who takes the bus and subway. And it's a waste of time and energy. Wouldn't it be nice to spend this part of the time lying on the big bed at home, or enjoying the game world created by billions of dollars? After confirming that everything was correct, Peter took another bottle of iced Coke from the bar as a drink to rehydrate later, then turned and left the office. Originally, he planned to say hello to Harry before leaving, but now that Gwen invited him, he said that he would just send a text message to let him know. After all, friends don't need to be so polite. He believed that Harry would not care about such trivial matters, so he decided happily. Peter took the elevator to the gate on the first floor, looked around, and confirmed that he was early. Gwen should still be in the personnel department, and he also saw the sofa beside him. Peter took out the Coke that he had just dropped by, and decided to drink it while it was cold, otherwise he would lose the original happiness. While leaning back on the sofa and drinking happy water, while watching the migrant workers coming and going, I miss the blessed life back then. Half an hour later, a familiar figure came into sight, and it was Gwen Stacy, the person who was on the appointment. After Gwen stepped out of the elevator, she took quick small steps along the way. She completely regarded the high heels under her feet as non-existent, and she was not affected at all. She walked steadily and fast. If one looked from a distance, no one would think that Gwen's feet would be 5-centimeter high-heeled shoes, which reminded Peter of a previous rumor. In fact, high heels are the real running shoes, which can allow girls to break through the limit and greatly enhance the walking speed. Gwen expressed her apology immediately, but the voice came before the people arrived. "Peter, I'm sorry to keep you waiting for such a long time." It was only then that Peter, who was in a state of crankiness, realized that he quickly put down the happy water in his hand, stood up and replied, "It's okay. I don't have anything urgent. I just have a good rest on the first floor." Gwen explained the reason for being late. It turned out that after coming out of the personnel department, several doctors who passed by were caught as free laborers and sent documents to the financial department. At that time, he didn't have his mobile phone with him, so he didn't get in touch with Peter in time, which led to the situation of waiting on the first floor for a long time. Seeing the apology on Gwen's face, Peter quickly started a new topic, touched his stomach and said, "I feel my stomach is screaming hard now. Why don't we go to eat first?" Gwen also understood Peter's intentions, nodded and adjusted her slightly rapid breathing, then turned and set off for the cafeteria of the Osborne Group headquarters. Under the leadership of Gwen, the two walked 50 meters to the canteen of the Osborne Group. That's right, the priceless high-rise building next to it is the dining place for the migrant workers of the Osborne Group. In this area where every inch of land is expensive, a large-scale dining place is specially built. The more you know about it, the more you feel that the Osborne Group is rich and powerful, and to another extent, it can be regarded as a perfect reflection of its heritage. Gwen picked up the work card from his pocket and handed it to the robot at the door. After a short operation, the two passed smoothly. The first to fifth floors of this building are the canteens of the Osborne Group. Looking around Peter, it is not so much a cafeteria as it is more like a buffet model, where you eat and drink by yourself. And there are quite a lot of people inside. Just scanning back and forth, I saw at least 50 people, most of whom were young people, plus some corners that I hadn't seen. There were at least 100 people dining at the same time on this floor. Gwen saw Peter's doubts, and introduced. Under normal circumstances, there are not so many people, but today is a weekend. If most colleagues have no other urgent matters, they usually go home after dinner at the company. And the food in the cafeteria is at the level of a 5-star hotel, which is generally better than the restaurants outside. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you can also meet some top chefs. Hearing this, Peter instantly understood that after a day's work, his tired body would not want to move when he returned home, let alone cook for himself. Young people are a typical example of this. What's more, the food in a 5-star hotel is not delicious, and you have to do it yourself, and even if you cook it, you may not be able to eat it. This is an act that hurts both your wallet and your body. Smelling the oncoming food aroma, both Peter and Gwen, who had just entered the door, noticed that hunger began to occupy the body's mainstream thought. The two looked at each other and smiled, and immediately started a division of labor. One person was responsible for getting the main food, and the other was responsible for getting the side dishes and drinks. Peter, who rushed into the crowd, was dazzled by the row after row of rich food in front of him, all kinds of special chicken drumsticks, steaks piled up in plates. In front of so many delicacies, Peter quickly made a decision that he would only eat full at this dinner time. To refuse the phenomenon of overeating and avoid the special reward, acute appendicitis, the next step after tasting the delicious food is to go to the hospital to ask for surgery. What an absurd situation. Peter said that caring for the body should start with little things, starting with eating and drinking, and fully considering the body's ability to bear. As for the remaining of the space, I will save it first. After returning home to rest at night, the energy will be almost consumed. The big meal that Aunt May made belongs to the supper time. Everything has been clearly arranged. Please call him Peter Parker, the master of time management. This wonderful life starts today. Holding the belief in future happiness, he bravely rushed into the crowd. After some fighting, Peter returned with a rewarding experience. He took advantage of his dexterous hands and feet and his strong body control ability to get food for 5 people back at once. Although the strange colleagues on the side were a little dazed, Gwen was not too surprised, and was still calmly preparing the ingredients in place. As a family member of a policeman, he still has good eyesight. Peter alone can beat a dozen of his peers, and the exercise he has done must be several times that of ordinary people. Naturally, the demand for food will also increase. Peter put the food on the table one by one, together with various vegetables, snacks and fruits after meals that Gwen took. A hearty and healthy dinner was born. While eating dinner, the two chatted about recent events and shared interesting things around them. During the period, Peter asked a series of questions about the handling between the school and the internship, and the procedures that should be handled. Because at the end of this week, he found that he was not quite used to the long-lost campus life after all. This internship has become an open and above-board opportunity to skip classes in his eyes, so he must seize it. Naturally, Gwen didn't know that the person in front of him had such a rebellious idea, so he used his own experience as an example to illustrate. It turned out that the group has given the right to choose the intern arrangement for the experimental project to the person in charge of the project, and they will arrange it uniformly. Dr. Connors used random selection. Gwen used to clock in to work on every week, and other times depended on self-consciousness in the actual arrangement of the laboratory that day. However, since this time, the new model of old people leading newcomers was adopted, so the process of time allocation was skipped. This batch of new interns directly followed the time allocation of the old employees, and Peter's working hours were naturally synchronized with Gwen's. The school is also very happy with this internship experience, and the current students can already practice in Osborne Group, which is a win-win situation for both parties. Hearing this, Peter is very satisfied. This is simply a tailor-made learning opportunity for him. From next week onwards, he will be a hard worker and vow to create more value for the Osborne Group. The arrival of the good news increased his appetite again, so in the middle of the journey, Peter, the hunter, came out of the cage again, and returned after sweeping a wave of food from the crowd. Driven by Peter's eating and broadcasting style, Gwen still couldn't control the temptation in the end, and her hands and mouth played a perfect tacit cooperation, taking advantage of the brains inadvertently to quickly complete the eating process. It wasn't until the first hiccup sounded that Gwen fully realized that today's food intake had seriously exceeded the limit set by himself. Even if she runs a full marathon tonight, it may not be able to consume the calories of this meal. In short, she has exploded, and the whole person is completely finished. Gwen, who woke up, wanted to cry, But when she saw Peter running towards the food again, with such a relaxed back, the resentment in her heart could not be controlled, and her envy and jealousy continued to rise. Eating so many stomachs did not change at all, and suddenly she wanted to ask again, how can I have this quality, and she wants it too. The second half was the world of eating and broadcasting Peter, while Gwen struggled on the sidelines, whether to eat or not to eat. Two different views were fighting in their minds. On the one hand, there is a strong temptation. Hurry up and eat, anyway, it's an exception, let's eat it tonight, and exercise tomorrow. The sound on the other side was broken, and it was extremely sharp. I can't eat anymore, you have to calm down, and learn to control yourself. Finally, after Gwen nodded mechanically, Peter started a quick liquidation operation, and all the food went into the belly of the bottomless pit. It also helped Gwen, who was in deep distress, make a choice. Seeing that there were only some after-dinner fruits left, he couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and the whole person relaxed. But she didn't make a sound right away, and silently adjusted her makeup. When Peter's meal was about to end, Gwen said, "Actually, I want to ask you a favor. I want you to accompany me to a place." Due to the increase in appetite in the middle, Peter ate more than of his original fullness, and his whole state was a little dazed. As the saying goes, it is easy to be dazed and dreamy after eating and drinking, and it is the same for him. Several strange thoughts appear in his mind for a while. This place is not very far away. I checked the map and it shows that it only takes about 10 minutes to get there. Look. Gwen took out his phone and called up the map, and handed it over. At this time, Peter realized that he took the phone instinctively, and immediately replied, "No problem, I'll walk with you." But Gwen also noticed Peter's absent-mindedness, and asked, "What's the matter? Is there something urgent suddenly?" "It's okay. You don't need to make time to come out to accompany me." Peter made a negative gesture, raised his spirits and said, "It's okay, you continue to talk. What's the situation? According to your tone, did you find something wrong? Or is there any other trouble?" He thought that the thoughts just now should never be spoken out. Just at that moment, his brain hole has been opened to an infinite level, and he has come to the point where their children are born. What kind of name should be good? At this time, Peter was most grateful that Harry and Mindy, the two god-level figures, were not by his side, allowing him to escape this catastrophe. Otherwise, with their brains and intuitive radar, they might really be able to detect the truth, and then there will be an unavoidable black history, and they will all laugh to death, especially the little devil like Mindy. Gwen, who was sitting opposite, heard Peter's intuitive inquiry. She knew that she had found the right person for this request, and the hesitation on her face gradually disappeared, and she told the ins and outs of the whole thing. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Gwen came to the garage as usual, followed the steps to start the car to warm up, and was ready to drive to the Osborne group. But the difference before is that in the past, his father, George Stacy, would choose to take a ride and go to work together, but today he left from the co-pilot. It turned out that Gwen had just obtained his driver's license in half a month. As a father, he was worried about his daughter's driving skills, especially when the first time he was on the road was going to Manhattan, the area with the most traffic. Therefore, his father, George, decided to turn himself into a teacher and give advice, using his years of experience to escort Gwen. After being with her for more than half a month, George also believes that his daughter is ready to become a teacher, and the rest depends on her own efforts. Therefore, today is the first time for Gwen to drive alone as a novice driver. He was cautious on the road, and received a text message on his mobile phone during the road. At that time, she entered the state of looking around and listening to all directions. There was no chance to distract her at all. She just glanced at it. It was an invitation message. An old classmate who was acquainted wanted to ask her out to meet, and didn't think much about it. Of course, due to prudent driving, the driving speed was completely unable to keep up with the original plan, and people arrived at the company on a step-by-step basis. After entering the company, she trotted all the way into the laboratory. Before the busy work came, she casually replied a text message to see you at night, then put down her phone and sent her body to the document in front of her. He struggled until noon, before he managed to finish the work at hand, stretching in the chair and moving his body that hadn't moved all morning. After the lunch hour, Gwen can finally relax a bit, drink coffee in the office to refresh herself, and get ready for the afternoon work. Suddenly she remembered some details that she hadn't noticed in the morning. This friend and she hadn't seen each other for nearly 2 or 3 months. The text message in the morning was their first contact since summer vacation. Some recent warnings from her father, George, made her be more careful about unknown phone calls and text messages. Although the tone was a bit vague at the time, she also knew that it should be related to the police department. In addition, after lunch, she tried to send a few more messages that she usually interacts with, but there was still no reply from the other side. The combination and addition of the three made Gwen have to have some bad premonitions, commonly known as girl's intuition. After some hesitation and thinking, she decided to call her father, George, to set off in the name of helping a friend, avoiding the worries from the parents, and asking her father to look up some relevant information in the police station. The bell for work in the afternoon came as scheduled, and Gwen temporarily suppressed all these thoughts and devoted her energy to work. Just before leaving Get Off Work, Gwen received some relevant information from his father George and a warning in words and language that lasted more than 10 minutes. According to the data, a few months ago, that is, during the summer vacation, all 4 members of the old classmate's family were involved in a serious car accident, and she was the only one who survived. In the end, the person stayed in the hospital for more than a month and disappeared in one night. The hospital began to suspect that it was to avoid the astronomical medical expenses and chose to run away overnight. So the hospital decided to upload the matter to the police station, hoping that the police could find the girl, which is the origin of the relevant information in Gwen's hands. These pieces of information made her feel that her previous premonition had a high probability to be correct, and there was a high possibility that something else happened to her old classmate. Having said that, Gwen didn't continue to speak out, and calmly rewarded herself with a piece of after-dinner fruit, cantaloupe, and sat quietly waiting for Peter's reply. And the state of the whole person seems to be much more relaxed, perhaps because everything has been poured out, the burden in the heart is gradually let go. And Peter understood Gwen's previous hesitation, but he didn't care about it. He was still confident in his own strength, and it was fine under normal circumstances. Of course, the final choice remains the same. He decides to help. Helping others has always been the principle of his behavior. His code name is a good neighbor of the city, and it is definitely not because it is a request from Gwen. As for the curse of fate about returning late, Peter expressed that he must believe in science, not believe in rumors or spread rumors, and that Uncle Ben and the others will also understand the reason why his nephew returned late. All in all, it can be described in 2 words, really fragrant. Peter said that he was talking about the smell from the food at the next table, which was so delicious that it made the gluttons in his stomach come out again. Hearing such an affirmative answer, Gwen was also a little moved. After all of this is just her personal guess, and there is still a certain degree of danger. Immediately sent my thanks and a promise, and said with a serious expression, "Peter, thank you very much, you are willing to believe in my feeling, and if you need me in the future, you must do your best." In this regard, Peter readily accepted this kindness. He has plans to seriously work in the Osborne group for 3 months. With the help of an extra Gwen brand, he will definitely be able to get a better job in the laboratory building. After confirming that the other party was full, the two quickly took action, first sending all the tableware on the table to a special cleaning tank, then turned and left. The first stop was to go back to the company. Due to time constraints, Gwen didn't have all her belongings. Since it was nighttime, the Osborne group implemented the principle of 1 card and 1 person for the management of the laboratory. Peter was a newcomer who did not have this function for the time being, so he went back to the sofa in the lobby to wait. Fortunately, the TV in front is broadcasting programs about strange events, which are essentially all kinds of boring and weird behaviors of human beings, saving the waiting Peter. One of the text incidents interrupted him even more. It is said that in a certain university, there was a big green man who walked around the campus with his upper body bare. If he hadn't heard about the cover-up of Tony Stark's disappearance, Peter would probably have laughed it off, thinking it was just a prank created by bored college students. Because in my impression, the birth scene of the Hulk is definitely a big news, at least it will not appear on such similar gossip shows. But now it's completely different. The cruel fact of Tony Stark is right in front of him, as if he is telling Peter, "My lord, the times have changed, you have to take care of yourself." Therefore, this message may be explaining Peter's hunch that the Hulk has been born in this world. "Peter, we got the things, let's go." The familiar voice made Peter end all kinds of predictions about this news, break away from the state of thinking, and look up at the front of his eyes. The moment Gwen entered his eyes, Peter had to admit the fact that he had just come back to his senses. He felt his eyes light up again, a feeling of amazement welled up in his heart, and his heartbeat accelerated inexplicably. The black high-heeled shoes were replaced with sneakers, and the long hair was combed again and tied into a ponytail. The whole person looked very capable. When he saw the backpack behind him, Peter immediately regained his composure, and there were 2 speculations in his mind. One was that Gwen was really prepared, and the other was that Gwen's father, George, was definitely a powerful darling. This backpack is a special version for self-defense. It is equipped with a high-voltage electric shock device on the left and right sides, which is very easy to extract. The most basic standard is smooth flow. And when the voltage is adjusted to the highest level, the things in contact will almost fall down when touched. It is a feeling that the whole body will instantly enter numbness simultaneously, which is definitely not something ordinary people can bear. Don't ask how Peter knew. Keep asking. The crazy special training at the beginning, and Mindy's full of bad taste, that is an unforgettable memory, and it is still hard to forget. Peter patted his head, suppressed the complicated and troubled memories in his heart, got up and walked towards Gwen, approached and asked, "Gwen, how should we go? What's your plan?" Gwen led the way ahead, and responded, "Go for the car. By the way, Peter, do you have your driver's license with you?" The sudden arrival of this question made Peter stunned for a few seconds, and replied in an uncertain tone, "I remember it was. I stuffed it into the backpack today." After speaking, he reached out to open the backpack behind him, and searched carefully. "Let me take a look first. Here, what's wrong?" Gwen was already multitasking, typing text messages on the mobile phone while walking in a straight line, and explained, "This time I may drive a motorcycle. I am not very skilled in motorcycles, so I may trouble you to be the driver." Gone. It turned out that when Gwen went upstairs to get things just now, Gwen heard the chatter of several colleagues and learned that a series of traffic accidents had occurred at the intersection. It just happened to be during the peak hours of work and school. The current situation is that more than an hour has passed, and the condition of this road section has not been relieved. Instead, it has gradually spread to the nearby road section for several kilometers, forming a trend of big traffic jams. And these road sections are all necessary places to go to the endpoint, and there is no other option for detours at all. If you want to continue driving there, there is only one option left now: join the traffic jam, cultivate a calm state of mind with them during this journey, and wait for the normal traffic time. Considering time and many other factors, Gwen quickly decided to change the original plan and give up the car to seek new tools. She activated the connections and relationships she had made over the past year. "I am currently communicating with a staff member of the logistics department, hoping to receive a new travel tool, a motorcycle." With that said, Gwen changed direction again, walked towards the door, and came to the security room next to the door. "Peter, we need to wait here for a while." Naturally, Peter had no problem. He nodded as a response, and stood shoulder to shoulder with Gwen, waiting for the key figures to appear on the stage. A moment later, an old man in a security uniform and big sunglasses came driving a cool motorcycle. When the vehicle drove closer, Peter found that it was still a brand he was familiar with, and he had observed it closely last night. That's right, it was a Harley. An old man over half a century old with a little gray hair was driving a domineering Harley. However, unlike what he saw last night, the first feeling of this Harley is that it has gone through vicissitudes and years. From the traces on the car, he seems to have seen all kinds of strong winds and waves. Taking a closer look at the old man's clothes that closely follow the trend of the times, a strange sense of fashion comes oncoming. If he is a few years younger, Peter estimates that the old man must be a part of the gangsters on the streets late at night. No surprises, Peter's intuition was correct. The old man deserves to be a person who wants to do big things, and the next second he speaks will be a big piece of news. Before the old man stopped the car completely, he began to tease. "Hi, Gwen, good evening. This one is probably not your boyfriend." At first, Gwen, who was about to speak out, didn't expect this question to be raised. He was stunned for several seconds, and turned his head subconsciously. Just happened to look at each other with Peter on the side, and then the two sides separated instantly, looking at each other as if the air was suddenly quiet. The collision of eyes made the two people who were originally normal feel a little indescribable feeling in their hearts, and an inexplicable atmosphere formed around them. The momentary interaction between the two, the old man on the side watched with relish. He couldn't help but think of the girl when he was young, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He sighed again. It seems that a group of young men in the company are about to cry. My friend George is probably going to suffer from insomnia these few nights, and his precious daughter is about to be stolen. Facing such a funny old man, Gwen couldn't help laughing, brushed her hair to cover her hot ears, and took a deep breath to greet him. He replied calmly, "Good evening, Mr. Edward. I'm sorry to trouble you. I came from home late at night. Thank you very much for your help." He took the initiative to take the direction of the topic, pointed to Peter, who came over and introduced. "Peter Parker, my classmate and new colleague. We have something to go out, but it just so happened that there was a big traffic jam at the intersection." The term manual maturity is fully reflected in the old man. Although he has seen through Gwen's blunt reversal at a glance, he still knows the scope of ridicule. Directly following this topic, he continued, "Is that so? Is there a traffic jam already? That's why my big baby is more reliable, but be careful, my fuel tank is only 1/3 full." As he spoke, the old man parked the car aside, took off his hat and big sunglasses, pulled out the key, and approached the two of them. At this time, Peter, who had been staying quietly by the side, could clearly see the side face of the old man. Under the light of the security room, he saw a face that was both familiar and unfamiliar. Familiarity is because I have only seen him in several movies and news, and the strange feeling is naturally due to seeing a real person for the first time. The previous Peter was still a little confused about this kind of dressing style. After all, he would not choose to wear big sunglasses when going out at night. Now seeing the true face of the old man, all doubts and questions are solved. The answer has been completely revealed. The old man is Stan Lee, the famous old man in the Marvel world. That's right. This person is exactly the same as the Marvel movies Peter has seen before. Presumably this person in front of him should be one of the many clones of the old man in this world. Wearing sunglasses late at night can only be regarded as a trivial matter among the mountains of glorious deeds of the old man, and it is not worth mentioning at all. In short, even if the old man passed across the battlefield, Peter would not be surprised at all. After all, the old man did not do this kind of incident once or twice. When Peter was distracted, Mr. Edward had come to him, handed over the car keys in his hand, and said, "Hey, Peter, come and get the keys, and you must be careful later, especially in traffic jams. There are still a lot of vehicles on the road, so remember to drive slowly." Peter also reacted in time, quickly took the car keys, and made a corresponding guarantee to Mr. Edward. "Okay, Mr. Edward, I will definitely pay attention." Seeing the two people who had joined, Old Man Edward knew that the identities of the melon eaters should be changed, and said again, "All right then, Gwen, pay attention to safety, go early and return early." "Okay, thank you. The new travel tool is online, and all the preparations are ready, and the next step is to start immediately. Now it is nightfall, and the time is around 7 o'clock in the evening." Peter sincerely hopes to achieve the goal of leaving early and returning early, but he has not forgotten that he still has a miraculous prophecy. If he got caught again this time, it would probably be close to the early morning when he returned to Queens tonight. Although there is also an advantage that it can be seamlessly connected to the supper moment, but in general, it is better to avoid it as much as possible. With the idea of a quick battle, Peter quickly got on the Harley, which looked vicissitudes of life, put on the helmet, and Gwen provided the corresponding route guidance from behind. However, when it was started, Peter knew that Mr. Edward must have been driving out frequently and had updated the car many times. Surpassed. Under Gwen's version of the navigation voice, Peter drove the Harley in every possible way, going wherever there was space, and flexibly shuttled through the nearly 1 kilometer-long traffic jam. Seeing the convoy that could be described as a sea of people, Peter's first feeling was that he was very grateful for Gwen's previous decisiveness, otherwise they would have been waiting here. At the same time, I can understand why the old man Edward has repeatedly emphasized the safety issue, because the number of vehicles in this section of the journey is indeed very large. And it may be during the rush hour of getting off work, the probability of each car owner's road rage being triggered is obviously several times higher. There are car owners venting their horns everywhere, and even some car owners have started to curse. The whole scene is as noisy as a vegetable market. However, models such as Harley have a high demand for space. Under such circumstances, the requirements for drivers are greatly increased. The usual small mistakes will turn into big troubles at any time here, and traffic accidents such as frictional rear-end collisions are extremely prone to occur, which will eventually add fuel to this chaotic situation. Fortunately, with superhuman perception and perfect control of the body, Peter is like a car god possessed at this moment, showing Harley a flexibility that does not match the body. Moreover, Harley's rapid movement further exacerbated the chaos of the scene to some extent, resulting in the sound of horns in his ears almost never stopping along the way. Peter also consciously used Harley's speed to the limit, and with his keen perception, he could detect the fiery gazes from all directions. That kind of envious and jealous eyes, the car owners are eager to replace it, or they want to carry out the tactics of water ghosts. Everyone goes into the water together to harmonize you, me and him. After passing through the difficult road section at the beginning, the next road is as flat as a plane. At the speed of Harley, after 5 minutes, Gwen has already reminded that the destination is about to be reached. However, Peter discovered another problem. The surrounding environment became more and more familiar to him. He always felt that he had seen it somewhere before, but he had never been to this area in his memory. This is a puzzling place, although there is no image, but I feel an unusual sense of familiarity. and even feel a sense of uneasiness attacking me. Is it an illusion? But there is no reason, I asked myself in my heart. With vision limited by the helmet, Peter's choice was to continue driving forward while also concentrating, looking around seriously again. This time, out of the corner of his eye, he saw something different. The extremely dark area in the distance attracted him deeply. At this moment, he understood where this sense of familiarity came from. The place that was shrouded in darkness and had no streetlights at just after 7 o'clock in the evening had an exclusive name. It was right, it was Hell's Kitchen again. And this vicinity is also the area that he and the Punisher Frank passed through in the morning run this morning, but they were in a hurry early in the morning, so they didn't pay much attention to the surroundings. This is the origin of that sense of inexplicable familiarity, because after a lapse of 14 or 5 hours, he came back here again within half a day. This may be the so-called classic case where it is impossible to go home. The feeling here is much more comfortable than at home. Although there are really many talents here, Peter said that distance can produce beauty. At the same time, he had to admit the fact that maybe the goddess of fortune would really smile at him again. This is an extremely sad story. On the other hand, he is also seriously considering adding a special itinerary in the next week following Aunt May to church for a weekend of prayer. As the saying goes, to be a human being is to pay attention to the rules. After all, there is no rule without rules. My previous life experience told me that whenever I go to a new place, I have to do as the Romans do. He may have just come to a new site, and he didn't report to the local snake, Jesus, in time, so he had this experience like a coffee table, with traps everywhere. I just don't know whether the boss of Jesus will accept him as a temporary believer. This is a question worthy of careful consideration. Circled this point in his mind, he reckoned that this was another important point, and he would definitely have to take the exam. It seemed that he had to ask Aunt May for advice. As for the idea of not being superstitious and believing in science, Peter said that everything should be realistic, everything should be based on reality, and people should not be too rigid, but learn to be flexible. Peter, the icon of road construction is suddenly displayed ahead. We have to drive back to the intersection ahead and make a right turn there ahead of time. Gwen's voice came from behind, and Peter, who was thinking deeply about the meeting with Jesus, returned to the world. All right, got it. Peter quickly adjusted his direction, and asked out of the idea of casting a wide net and catching more fish. By the way, what is the name of one of your classmates? Is it a high school classmate? Gwen checked the latest planned map on her mobile phone, and replied, yes, Jessica Jones is actually your high school classmate. She was transferred to the class in the last school year. I don't know if you still have no impression. My classmate? I really don't remember this. This answer surprised Peter. He didn't expect that he actually had that dime relationship with him. The brain began to run at high speed with one mind and two purposes, and while continuing to drive, review the memories in my mind by the way. It's a pity that the relationship between this high school classmate has gone round and round in his mind. Peter has never been able to find other new connections from it, and the direction is still in the fog. After a while, Gwen's voice came again, Peter, we are here. Look, it is the hotel in front. Peter quickly ended the deadlock in his mind, raised his head under the helmet, and looked at it. It was a hotel integrating catering and accommodation. The appearance is luxurious and extravagant, and the various decorations can be described as gorgeous. The 5-star hotel is the first impression it gives to every customer. And maybe it was dinner time, the hotel still had a lot of traffic, and dozens of cars had already entered and left during this short period of time. While Peter was observing the hotel, Gwen in the back seat did not stop her task. She focused on observing the surrounding road conditions, looking for a parking space. Peter, you still need to drive forward, there is a special parking space for motorcycles at the corner on that side. Gwen got off the station ahead of time and waited. Peter quickly completed a series of processes of parking, turning off the engine and pulling out the keys. Finally, he repeatedly checked whether the chain had tied the motorcycle. The car loss incident that happened yesterday is still vivid in my memory, coupled with the ominous prediction just now. Peter wants to take precautions from the trivial and never let go of any possibility. The mentality has gradually changed to that I would rather kill the wrong than let it go. The abbreviation is that the emotion is already on the top, and the whole person is crazy to kill. After a whole set of inspections, Peter picked up his backpack and said to Gwen, I've been waiting for a long time, let's go. Gwen nodded, and didn't feel that there was anything wrong with this set of meticulous and even cumbersome procedures. On the contrary, she was surprised that the boy would be so careful. She is very clear about the importance of this Harley in the heart of Mr. Edward. It can be called a first-class favorite, and the daily maintenance of the car is the most basic treatment. If it wasn't for the sudden timing of the inquiry, Mr. Edward would have lent other motorcycles. Now that Peter is taking it so seriously, Gwen sees everything in his eyes. Of course, this is a good thing, and he is short of giving Peter a thumbs up. And Peter felt uncomfortable with Gwen's admiring eyes, which made him calm down a little and realized what was wrong just now. At the same time, he also felt a little bit lucky at this moment. If Mindy was at the side, he probably couldn't avoid a word complaint. This is by no means a slander, and none of these 300 words will be repeated. Please believe that Mindy's true level has skyrocketed after the daily chatter with him. Thinking of this, Peter felt extremely regretful that he had inspired Mindy's earth-shattering mouth and cultivated a life-and-death enemy for himself. The two walked towards the hotel ahead, and as the distance approached, Peter noticed that Gwen also began to tense up, and her breathing and moving steps changed slightly. Just when Peter was about to say something to relieve the tense atmosphere, a sound of playing and playing came, which attracted the attention of the two of them. A number of parents took their gold-eating beasts for a walk in the open space beside them. Visually, it should be the post-meal digestion session. Among them, children aged 3 or 4 were the majority, and the voice just now came from this group of human cubs. They took turns to sing, showing their singing voice as the future king to their heart's content. There are also a few cute babies under 1 year old who are trying to take the first step of independence in the new world under the companionship and education of their parents. The interaction between parents and children, and each child's strange and weird reactions are extraordinarily lively and interesting, giving people the feeling that they have opened the door to a new world. If this scene is described in specific language, this is the scene of the so-called large-scale fraudulent childbirth series. If every interaction is posted on the internet, it will cause a feast of discussion. As for the nervousness that was worried about Gwen just now, Peter thinks that it is unnecessary to pay attention to it now, and now she has half-stepped into this trap. Although he is still walking in a normal straight line, the curious eyes fully illustrate this point, as if to say how there is such a cute baby in this world. And in the face of such a harmonious and loving scene, he also began to have some doubts about his previous judgment. Maybe it was just his own suspicion flared up, a pure false alarm. Shaking his head, he rejected the endless speculation. It was too disturbing. Anyway, he had to be ready to fight at any time. At the same time, Peter also saw a small accident behind him. A little girl over 3 years old was running towards them. The little girl seemed to have lost her balance and dived uncontrollably towards the ground. Her hands and feet were dancing. She didn't know where to put her limbs. Her eyes were full of surprise. And her parents obviously didn't notice this, and they were sitting on the sidelines discussing with other parents, probably exchanging ideas on education. Seeing the traces of fear on the little girl's face, Peter of course immediately rushed over and reached out to grab her, and successfully hugged her into his arms at the last second, preventing this grand scene of throwing her legs up in the air and crying loudly. "It's okay, don't cry. Run slowly from now on." Peter comforted the little girl, wiping the tears from her face. The little girl also knew that it was the big brother in front of her who saved her, thanked her like an adult, and took out a candy from her clothes. "Thank you, big brother, candy for you." "No, you can eat it. I won't eat candy anymore." Peter laughed at the little girl's adult appearance, patted her little head and said. Facing Peter's refusal, the little girl anxiously waved the candy in her hand, emphasizing pitifully, "The purple one, this is my last one, it will definitely be delicious." As she said that, the little girl's eyes began to tear up. With that distressed but determined expression, the people who don't know the truth will definitely think that Peter is grabbing the children's candy. If it is posted on the internet, it will be another cute baby emoticon package forwarded by hundreds of millions of people. Peter wants to laugh but dare not laugh. Suppressing a smile and thinking about countermeasures, I personally feel that if I took it, the little girl would cry when I turned around, but if I didn't take it, the stubborn expression on this little face already said everything. Just when Peter didn't know how to respond, fortunately the reinforcements arrived in time, and Gwen gestured for her to deal with it. Next, Gwen fully demonstrated her natural affinity as a woman. She took the initiative to squat down for the first time to achieve mutual eye-to-eye communication, thereby reducing the little girl's resistance. And took out a pack of lollipops from the backpack, and gently suggested, "I thank you for your kindness on behalf of the big brother. This is a lollipop, little angel, let's exchange it, is it okay?" After hearing this proposal, the little girl immediately looked at Peter in front of her, as if asking, "Is it true?" Although Peter, the melon eater on the side, was very surprised, he didn't expect the decision-making power to go around and return to his side. immediately nodded to agree to this suggestion, and actively cooperated with Gwen's work. Okay. Thank you, pretty sister. The little girl's serious expression finally changed, a perfect smile appeared, and she handed the candy to Peter. Goodbye, big brother, beautiful sister. After finishing speaking, the little girl hopped away, presumably planning to share her experience with her parents. After waiting for the little girl to meet her parents, the two turned and left. They didn't forget that they still had business to do. On the way forward, Peter recalled that scene of harmony and friendship again, but at this moment, for some reason, he remembered the special training with Mindy a month ago, which was an unspeakable dark history. Since the first meeting in the beginning of the special training, Mindy was born with short purple hair, which made him produce purple before Mindy is the real hair color. When Mindy showed off her blonde hair, Peter had a look of curiosity and suspicion, mainly because the first impression was too deep and deeply rooted, so he couldn't help asking why. Of course it's to cover up your identity, rookie. It's really necessary to suspect whether you cheated in your previous exam. Looking at Mindy, who was about to apply to the Big Daddy for restoration, Peter at that time could only raise his hands to express his surrender. As a result, he was extorted by Mindy, and his already pitifully small wallet suddenly shrunk sharply again. Later, this incident became a favorable material for Mindy to tease and counterattack. Peter was also constantly forced to remember this, which was very impressive. After entering the elevator, Peter, who was imagining endlessly, finally found a common ground. No, it should be purple, but why did I suddenly think of this? As he gradually pondered deeply, his intuition told him that this might be the key, and the final answer was hidden behind it. For purple, Peter's first impression is of course that famous person, the top player from Titan, the director of the Cosmic Family Planning Office, Thanos. However, this speculation does not conform to the actual situation today, and it can be said to be groundless. Suddenly, inspiration flashed through his mind at this moment, and strange ideas began to emerge, and he connected a series of different angles one by one. Peter repeated under his breath over and over again. Jessica Jones, Matt Murdock, the Defenders and high school friends, and then purple. Could it be the Purple Man? This is a villain who once appeared in the Defenders. For this one, Peter really doesn't have much impression. In his memory, the purple people were classified by default into the team of third-rate villains. Their ability was to release their unique aura, assist them with words, and then manipulate the target to act. Generally speaking, it is similar to a hypnotic method, but it has been strengthened several times by the purple people using their own advantages, and it can almost achieve the effect of instant control. This is the only thing that can be recalled. After all, as a serious person, no one would pay attention to villains, and Peter was the best of them at that time. Even if you pay attention to the villains, there are more of them like Gila and Harley Quinn, whose appearance and figure coexist. Isn't it good? Of course, as a serious person, Peter is most concerned about his old opponent with Batman, the Clown, and this one has more depth of thought. Young and promising, he was fortunate to become #1 in the circle of starting a team and fighting against the line, and the Ugly Man was his most solid support. After sorting it out, Peter felt that the possibility of this prediction was the highest. Jessica Jones might be a member of the Defenders. As for the lethal power of the purple people to ordinary people, Peter should pay special attention to this point. Once there is enough time, it can be called a new round of strong judges. Trouble was the only thing on Peter's mind at the moment, and he felt his head starting to ache, and it was probably directed at Gwen. As for stepping forward to stop Gwen now, if only he had thought of it a few minutes earlier, there would be good reasons to persuade him at that time. It was too late now. They had already entered the hotel and took the elevator, and there were only a few steps left. No matter what, it was useless. What's more, the moment they entered the hotel, they had already entered the enemy's monitoring range, and impulsive behavior was not advisable. It's better to let nature take its course and act according to the enemy's plan, which is regarded as implementing a counterattack strategy to lure the snake out of the hole, so as to ambush the enemy hidden in the depths. This kind of situation is not unfamiliar to Peter. On the contrary, he has reached the rhythm he is most familiar with, and he is confident in this point. And as Peter gradually sorted out the sequence, the sound of the elevator arriving also sounded, indicating that the two had arrived at their final destination. The first thing the two did after getting out of the elevator seemed to be very tacit, take a deep breath, and both felt a little cautious about the next thing. The two looked at each other, a little surprised by each other's actions, and finally laughed out loud. The cleaning aunts passing by couldn't help but look at the two of them, as if they were looking at Erha, who was demolishing the house, with a little bit of anticipation in their eyes. Peter just wanted to say that it seems that he has met someone of his own generation. The identities of the melon eaters this year are really too wild, and it really corresponds to an old saying, all people are gay. Auntie Clean's flickering look of pity made Peter unable to complain. The feeling of being eaten by others was too disturbing. However, he also knew that the most important thing at this moment was to boost that military spirit, so he cheered up immediately and said, "It's okay. Let's take it easy. Let's go. Which room are you in?" Gwen nodded and responded, "Turn right. According to what the front desk said, it should be at the east end of this floor." After a while, the two came to the door of the room. After confirming that the room number was correct, Gwen, the protagonist, began the last process, stepped forward and pressed the doorbell. As the bell rang, there was movement inside the room, and Peter could sense that someone was coming to open the door. Gwen's mood also changed accordingly, and his right hand began to move unconsciously to the side of the backpack to see the steady gesture and the ready posture of exerting force. Peter guessed that the people who would show up later were not high school classmates, and Gwen would definitely take a high-voltage electric baton and give him a free paralysis package. The door opened slowly, and a blonde woman in sportswear appeared in front of the two of them, with her hair casually scattered on her shoulders. Haggard was the first impression she gave people, and the dark circles under her eyes fully demonstrated this point, as if she had just woken up in a mental state, and the whole person seemed a little dazed. When she saw Gwen, she hugged her with excitement, and said in a weak but thankful tone, "Long time no see, Gwen, you are here." Seeing that this was a familiar girlfriend, Gwen breathed a sigh of relief. Her previous judgment was wrong, and at the same time, she was completely taken aback by this sudden hug. The body cooperated subconsciously, hugged it with both hands, and remembered the information he had read before, patted his back and comforted, "Jessica, long time no see." After a long time, Jessica came out of Gwen's arms, looked at the figure beside her, with a strange look in her eyes, and asked, "Gwen, isn't he?" Gwen also knew her best friend's temperament, so she forcibly ended her speech with her hand, and said, "Let me introduce you, Peter Parker, who is also our high school classmate." "Hi Peter, everyone come in and sit down first." Jessica seemed relieved, then turned around and took Gwen's arm into the room. "What's the matter? Why didn't you answer so many calls before? I thought something happened to you." "No. It's okay, I'm too tired. I stayed up all night last night. I fell asleep after sending you a text message in the morning. I didn't expect to sleep until night." "Then where have you been these days? Why is there no one there?" After Peter entered the room, the first thing he did was to scan the surroundings, familiarize himself with the environment as quickly as possible, and prepare for the subsequent counterattack plan. This is a business single room. The indoor environment is roughly the same as other hotels. There is a large bed more than 2 meters long and wide in the middle, an LCD TV is hung on the wall, and sofas and tables are placed in the corner in an orderly manner. The only difference is that this room has an extra balcony, and various movements from outside are coming in through the unclosed glass door. As Gwen and the girlfriends shared their lives in depth, Peter consciously stayed away from them and sat quietly on the sofa in the distance, becoming a qualified onlooker. Listening to the long-lost narration of the pair of girlfriends in front of him, he thinks that the previous prediction should be correct, and 80.00% of them may be the Purple Man. And there is another important news. Jessica needs to pay more attention. She should still be under control at this time, and it feels like it will be the biggest obstacle to counterattack. In short, Peter has stretched his attention to the limit, calmly adjusted his breathing rate, and allowed his body to enter the best fighting state in advance. At the same time, the system that has been acting as a daily weather forecast in my mind is online again, perfectly presenting a typical representative of what is called hindsight. There is one thing to say, which system of other people's home does not know astronomy down to geography, plus a series of basic configurations such as predicting the future? He was really ashamed of it. He almost lost the name of the system family. It was a great shame in the system family. Peter has condemned this behavior many times, but unfortunately it is useless. The system is still going its own way. It wants to be beautiful on its own. The mechanical voice was not affected at all, and sounded calmly and orderly. The host was able to meet Jessica Jones and Matt Murdock in the vast crowd. This may be the arrangement of fate. The rescue of a genius. Jessica Jones' debut is the pinnacle. Because she met her lifelong enemy Zurin at the beginning, she never recovered from the setback, so she asked the host to help Jessica Jones get through this difficult time. Task reward. B-level lucky draw once. Life is so beautiful, with ups and downs. Gathering of defenders. The members have already encountered the second. Please give full play to the subjective initiative of the host, and gather relevant personnel in advance. Mission reward. Unknown. Perhaps the gift given by fate has already marked the price in secret. Please pay more attention to the beauty of life and learn to observe. After reading the descriptions of these two missions, Peter's first feeling was that the system was going to do something again. Every sentence, without exception, revealed the 5 big characters: empty hands, white wolves. There is even a classic quotation floating in your ears. Everyone who passes by, don't miss it. Come in and have a look. There are delicious big fat sheep here to eat casually, and there are free cut leeks all over the place. At this time, if the system has a physical body, he must give it a good life education lesson, and by the way, an experience package of vertical landing from the sky to the earth, to ensure that it can deeply taste all the good things in life. What kind of initiative is there? Do you think you are memorizing textbooks? A paragraph of thoughts and suggestions already been sent. After a while, the doorbell rang again, stopping Gwen and Gwen, who were talking enthusiastically about the next itinerary, and everyone's attention was attracted. A hoarse voice came from outside the door. Hello, sir, I am a cleaner, please open the door. Here it is, it's the room cleaning I called just now, you wait a while. Jessica responded, gestured to Gwen, and motioned for herself to open the door. In Peter's sight, Jessica's face once again showed confusion, struggle and other expressions, but they all disappeared in the blink of an eye. From these reactions, Peter knew that the most critical moment had arrived, and the ringtone was a signal that the black hand behind the scenes had begun to take action. It's just that whether the Purple Man will arrive at the scene in person is still an unknown question mark. And tonight, whether he can perfectly realize the seamless connection of the supper time depends on his performance in the next few minutes. Peter got up from the sofa, quietly changed his position, and chose to move to the window, which was the most favorable position in the room for counterattack. It can not only guarantee the return to defense against Gwen in the first time, but also launch a new round of attack, making the most of the effect of the difference in viewing angle. As the door opened, a middle-aged man in uniform was standing at the door. He showed a professional smile and said the reason for cleaning again. After getting Jessica's permission, he started to move, slowly pushing the tool cart into the room step by step. When he saw the figure entering the room, Peter felt a scrutinizing gaze on his body, and a looming danger struck him. At this moment, he confirmed that the middle-aged man in front of him was the Purple Man, and the black hand behind the scenes had officially stepped into the light, not manipulating others, but playing in person. Forcibly controlling the body's subconscious reaction, he knows that the most important thing at this moment is to be patient. The best time to make a move has not yet come. To deal with this kind of poisonous snake, it is necessary to hit it with one blow as much as possible, otherwise the harm will be unimaginable, not to mention that he is an extremely cunning Purple Man. Peter watched the Purple Man's every move after he entered the room. From the perspective of the work process, he didn't notice anything wrong. Whether it's the behavior or the smile on the face, it completely meets any requirements of the cleaning staff, and every movement can be used as a teaching standard. This made Peter have to admire Ziren's dedication. He is really an outstanding person who does what he does and loves. The phrase, 360 lines, the number one in everything, is a description of successful people like Ziren. If he hadn't already judged in his heart that he was a dangerous person in advance, he would hardly have thought that the middle-aged man in front of him would be an extrajudicial lunatic who killed countless people. This gentle face is probably the Purple Man's most powerful camouflage weapon. If one day encounters him on the street, the first impression of passers-by will be that he looks harmless to humans and animals. With this professional dedication and gentle temperament, Peter really wanted to be a guest tutor and teach Ziren a necessary course for college students' career planning class, so as to feel like a good teacher. Personally, I think Ziren must have listened carefully to this course in college, otherwise, how could he have taken up the most dangerous and least cost-effective job in the world? In other industries, it is a proper high-level figure, eating, drinking and having fun every day, and wearing luxury cars and famous watches, isn't it good? Peter felt deeply sorry for this, he was really jealous of talents. After the behind-the-scenes Purple Man entered the room, the first thing he did was to check the unplanned character, Peter, by the window. While carrying out the cleaning process, he looked at this stranger secretly from the corner of his eye. However, after this glance, the Purple Man gave up the idea of continuing to observe. Adolescents who are standing stupidly, this is the most intuitive feeling produced by the brain. There are little ghosts like this everywhere in the street, and the pitifully small mind is full of those men and women working and assigning things that are not tiring, so there is no need to pay attention to them at all. He doesn't even have the qualifications to be manipulated, and the tool cart beside him is also his final destination, which is completely irrelevant to the current situation. The Purple Man returned all his attention to the girl beside him, Gwen Stacy and Jessica Jones. These two were the focus of his operation. Looking back on the time before and after this plan, I feel that the goddess of luck is standing by my side, and all my actions are guided by God. Relaxation and happiness are the experience of this action, which may be regarded as the most labor-saving action since his debut. Half a month ago, Zurin was hunted down by his old colleagues all the way, and staged a Hollywood action blockbuster. The half-dead Purple Man ran around like a headless fly, and came to an unknown alley in a hurry. In the depths of the alley, he ran into Jessica Jones, who was leading a confused life, and intuitively carried out a scene where a good guy was hunted down, and he successfully controlled this kind girl with strange powers. Under Jessica's all-out punch, Zurin managed to escape from his old colleague. The only pity was that Jessica left his side in the chaos. The half-comatose Purple Man thought that this must be the muse God gave him. Otherwise, why would their abilities cooperate perfectly, and why would they appear when he was most dangerous? With Jessica's departure, Purple Man believes that this is just a test from God, and he will overcome all difficulties to find his muse. Afterwards, the Purple Man who came to his senses quickly took action, and after a week, he managed to find the flustered Jessica. However, the Purple Man didn't rush forward. First, the injury on his body has not fully recovered, and second, he knows that he must be careful when doing things. The Purple Man investigates Jessica Jones' entire experience from childhood to adulthood, starting from a series of materials such as family and school, to study his muse. Through this life information, the Purple Man discovered that Jessica Jones' parents had both passed away not long ago, and she was the only one left alive in this world. More coincidentally, someone in the black market happened to ask him to take action, and the target was George Stacy, the police chief who has been in the limelight recently, and his only daughter is Jessica's good friend. This series of chances and coincidences made him more convinced of his point of view, or in other words, rose to his belief, so he took today's action. At first, the plan was carried out perfectly according to the predicted direction, and the strange girl was successfully controlled again. Under his language, communication, Jessica decided to seek outside help, and Gwen, who has a police chief's father, became the girl's first choice. In the middle, because the plan was realized very smoothly, he became suspicious for a while, suspecting that this was actually a trap, a journey of death carefully set up by many enemies for him. Because as the planner of the plan, I never thought that it would be so smooth, and I didn't encounter any obstacles. But after several times of self-examination, no danger was found. This was an illusion of the Purple Man, and the operation continued to be carried out according to the plan. Looking at Jessica's figure, Zurin's heart became even hotter, and there was both longing and a little bit of fear in his eyes. This ability perfectly matched him. My Jessica, I will prove that I am your only friend, family, our combination will run rampant in this country, wait for me, this is God's guidance. As the door closed, the Purple Man realized that the time to make a move was approaching, and gestured backwards to let Jessica enter the arena first. Jessica once again showed a struggling expression, but this kind of subconscious resistance of the body did not allow her to successfully escape control, but seemed to be doing useless work. In the next second, Jessica's face didn't change a bit, and she gradually returned to Gwen's side, and took advantage of the opportunity to hold each other's little hands. The Purple Man also moved to the LCD TV area, and the two showed a tendency to double-team, standing on both sides of Gwen. A bright smile appeared on Zurin's face. He believed that the ending was already doomed at this moment, so he stepped forward and gave a kind greeting. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to serve you. Peter on the side, with his sharp eyes, could clearly see the changes in the Purple Man's expression. The change in the overall painting style is so great that people can call him a veritable villain. In just a few minutes, from gentle and friendly to rogue and perverted, Purple Man achieved a seamless switch between the two, and perfectly controlled these two completely different temperaments. In one sentence, in terms of temperament, the Purple Man is very short. If he claims to be the second, no one would dare to be the first. Among them, at several moments when the Purple Man was proud, Peter really wanted to step forward and remind the Purple Man that he had been seen through. But the prudence in my heart told me that I should not float in everything, and I should do less important things like setting up flags, and I had to learn to follow my nature. Looking at the increasingly sickly smile, Peter knew that the time had come and it was time to make a break with the Purple Man. After hearing the yin and yang greeting, Peter immediately made a lunge, and the whole person rushed forward, one step from the window 5 meters away. Aim at key parts such as the head, chest, and abdomen, and quickly swing a set of combined punches, trying to end the battle in the shortest time. The purple man looked at the pair of good girlfriends in front of him with fiery eyes, planning the next steps in his mind to ensure the smooth implementation of the plan. Facing Peter's set of combined punches, he didn't react at all, because he never expected such a situation to happen. Even when the body's muscle memory began to subconsciously evade the attack and was forced to retreat, the purple man still didn't think he was on the verge of life and death, and felt that it was more like a boring farce. It seems that because of the smooth sailing before, his confidence has exploded, he lost his judgment of danger, and he didn't even notice that the scythe of death was swaying towards his head. At this moment, the purple man's first reaction was not to reflect on what went wrong, but to be filled with anger. This insignificant kid actually dared to punch the future underground king. How dared, and who gave him the courage? Even at this time, the purple man wanted to laugh. The pheromones on his body had spread all over the room. As long as he was given a little time, he could easily kill hundreds of such little ghosts. He raised his voice and roared angrily, "Little brat, stop for me." Hearing this sentence, Peter instantly understood the reason for the purple man's bewildering behavior just now. Looking at this confident face, he actually felt a little unbearable. However, Peter has always adhered to the good principle of beating dogs in the water when dealing with battles. Naturally, he will not miss this great opportunity, adjust his pace and continue to punch. And the purple man was waiting for the obedience of the kid in front of him, but the reality in the next second completely shattered his fantasy. Peter's heavy punches came again. Each punch was aimed at the key parts of the body, and it was fatal. The multiple pains in the body's volley are telling Zurin one thing: it's time to wake up from the dream of the underground king in the future. My lord, the times have changed. The moment he flew into the air, Zurin gradually calmed down. He knew that he must not panic at this time. He hadn't lost yet, and victory was still on his side. Facing the body that was out of control, at this moment, the purple man showed the experience of many years of fried dough sticks to the fullest. He resolutely bit the tip of his tongue forcefully, allowing the pain to sweep across his whole body in an instant, so as to regain control of his body. The first step is to lower the center of gravity as much as possible to prepare for the subsequent counterattack. And ordered again, "Jessica, hurry up and kill this brat." On the other side, Gwen, who was on the side, was stunned by the flashy fight. Question marks kept popping up in my head. Why did my classmates suddenly rush up, and why did they wrestle with the cleaning staff? Originally, Gwen, the daughter of a policeman, had already noticed the subtle changes in the atmosphere of the room in advance. She vaguely felt that something was wrong, and was about to explain the situation to Peter. Unexpectedly, after turning around, she saw Peter's sudden action. This scene reminded her of the four-character idiom taught by her Chinese teacher, which is as quiet as a virgin and as moving as a rabbit. And the purple man's loud call surprised Gwen even more, before she could react. After hearing the order, Jessica knocked her hands on Gwen's neck subconsciously, making Gwen, the only onlooker at the scene, directly announce that she was offline and forced to sleep. But Jessica didn't follow the purple man's order in the next step. Instead, she showed a struggling expression again, and she froze in place, motionless. The purple man's order did not distract Peter, and the possibility of Jessica being manipulated had already been expected. By observing the changes in micro-expressions, he found that Jessica often struggled for a moment, which was a sign of getting out of control alone. So when Jessica opened the door, Peter secretly wrapped a small amount of blue flame spider silk around Jessica's body, helping her spark a prairie fire, so as to catch the purple man by surprise. This is also an important reason why he chose to counterattack latently. The blue flame on the spider silk can effectively suppress the pheromone hormone carried by the purple man. It's just that Peter didn't expect that Gwen was forced to sleep. It seems that he still needs to add another insurance to keep this trend going. While continuing to beat the middle-aged man Zurin violently, he turned around nimbly, and quickly threw out blue flame spider threads all over the sky with his hands, covering Gwen and the two of them. Wrapping the two of them tightly on the double bed is a different kind of protection, which can effectively avoid the situation where the purple people take hostages in the future. As for Jessica's disobedience, the purple man was even more unexpected. He was already roaring to himself in the depths of his heart, "Impossible, there is no reason, just now." When all the hidden cards were broken one by the kid in front of him, the purple man felt extremely negative, and his confidence in winning was declining step by step. It wasn't until this time that Z really came to his senses. His brain, which was so angry, had returned to freezing point in an instant, and the information he possessed flashed through his mind. This kid is a formidable enemy, a being who is immune to and undoes his pheromone control, a person who can kill him. The purple man knew that the identities of hunter and prey had completely changed at this moment. No, it should have started to change the moment he stepped into the room. However, under Peter's fierce attack, the purple man no longer dared to be distracted, and he quickly ended all kinds of thoughts in his mind. However, he used to forcibly control his body with his will, but at this moment, he suffered a backlash, and his body gradually slowed down. As a result, the chest was hit hard again. This time, the purple man couldn't hold back anymore, and blood spurted out of his mouth immediately, splashing on the clothes and the floor. Red gradually became the main color of the uniform on his body, but the smell of blood in his mouth did not make the purple man completely lose his fighting spirit. On the contrary, it cheered him up again. The purple man immediately touched his waist with both hands, and pulled out 2 guns. His hands were extremely fast, and the gunshots sounded, and more than half of the bullets went towards the big bed. Peter slammed on the brakes, turned around and threw a lot of spider silk, forming a cover in front of the bed, blocking all the bullets. The purple man managed to break away from the rhythm, leaning his back against the wall to adjust his breathing, looked up at the little ghost in front of him, and said viciously, "Little ghost, are you not full?" Peter's reply was silent, and he planned to continue to attack. He knew that talk would consume character, and he personally preferred to use it in disadvantaged situations. What's more, he didn't forget that the purple man also possessed a self-healing ability. At this time, it looked like the injury was very tragic, purple and black, but it was not easy to say. Generally speaking, this battle is still going to be on June. The purple man is only frightened by his preemptive means at this time, so he is beaten helplessly. He should have the last card in his hole. With both guns in hand, the purple man had a half-minute confrontation with Peter in this relatively small space. The result was remarkable. The bullet broke through the glass door leading to the balcony, and the glass and bullet casings scattered all over the floor. Faced with this scene, Peter's brain was freeing himself. At this moment, what he thought of was that Ziren's silencer was genuine, and he suddenly wanted to ask where to buy it, and that the sound insulation effect of this big hotel is worthy of a 5-star level. The purple man looked at the kid who was about to move, and knew that it was time for him to make a choice, and the bullets in his hand were about to run out. He knew very well that it was the good girlfriends Jessica and Gwen who could break the situation now, and they were still the key. It's just that once the control is forcibly controlled, the difficulty of achieving control again next time will be dozens or even hundreds of times higher, which almost cuts off all hope of a successful combination with his own muse. The flames of anger raged in his brain, but the purple man knew what choice he should make, bit off the muscle in his arm, and swallowed the whole piece without too much hesitation. Move, my most loyal dolls. This is the last hole card of the purple man. Through the act of self-mutilation, the pheromone hormone in the body will reach its peak instantly, and will ignore any armor. In the next 5 minutes, the target will be reduced to a doll to be played with at will, and life or death will depend on the purple man's words. But it is a pity for Ziren that he only has one chance to completely control each person, and he will also suspend the body's self-healing ability. It is precisely with such a trump card that balances merits and demerits that Ziren can escape from the annual big hunt of his old colleagues, but live in this country relatively low-key. Such a taboo scene happened in front of him, and his body stiffened accordingly, as if there were hundreds of screaming ducks around his ears. Knowing that something big was going to happen, Peter immediately bit the tip of his tongue to drive away the illusion, immediately left the purple man behind, turned and ran towards Gwen and the others. Facts proved that his choice was correct. Under the call of the purple man, the 2 people under the spider's thread took action. The girl with strange powers, Jessica, was extremely excited, and she quickly tore off the spider webs on her body, along with those on Gwen's body, and was running towards Peter, waving her girlish fist. Gwen, on the other hand, seemed to be in a state of sleepwalking. She climbed up from the carefully prepared blue flame version of the spider silk quilt, and set off to the balcony with her arms swinging, as if she was doing warm-up exercises, preparing for a difficult bungee jumping. Peter rushed over non-stop, hugged Xiaomin's waist sealed by the windbreaker tightly with both hands, and retreated back into the room. Gwen immediately danced her hands and feet, and her limbs undoubtedly did not mean one thing: she was longing to run to the vast world outside. A princess carried the person back to her castle. At the same time, for the princess's high-quality sleep, Peter reproduced the blue flame version of the spider silk quilt and draped it firmly. Every day is a description of Peter's state at this time. No, just after dealing with the princess who wants to bungee jump without permission, the white fist of the athletic girl has come to him. Under the blonde hair, a youthful face, a perfect figure when running, coupled with that gentle little fist. Anyone who looks at it at the first glance will be completely confused by it. This is the beauty of youth in the past, the endless frivolity and dreams of youth. But Peter is very aware of the real situation behind the fog. This seemingly gentle slapstick of a girl is actually a punch of a giant with all its strength. This kind of strength is definitely not something ordinary people can enjoy. The brain is running fast, and it is definitely not a good way to directly meet the head-on at this moment. Next to him was a purple man who was staring at him. After shouting that, he adjusted his state without moving. His intention was already very obvious, which was to wait for the melee between Peter and Jessica, so that he could benefit from it. Peter dodged the blow nimbly, and the wind of the fist passed by, launching a spider silk attack at close range, causing the room to be engulfed in a sea of flames, making it blue as far as the eye can see. He also used a series of skills such as joint skills and judo learned from the special training, preparing to suppress Jessica, who has suffered from short-term ADHD. However, what made Peter feel dangerous was that the purple man also began to change his position constantly, which forced him to focus on the purple man. After a while, he felt something was wrong, and the direction of the purple man became very strange. Turning his head suddenly, he saw the purple man flashing past. He was running towards the balcony, and he wanted to escape. In fact, the purple man's original plan was not to escape, but to join Jessica, and the two would work together to carry out a 2-on-1 attack to kill the powerful enemy in front of him. He even planned to take advantage of the reversal momentum to complete the original family plan in one fell swoop, to make up for the loss caused by the forced control this time, and to achieve the effect of a blessing in disguise. As for directly forcibly controlling Peter, he doesn't have much hope for it, as long as he can influence his actions. However, after seeing Peter and Jessica fighting for several rounds, the purple man completely gave up the idea of fighting back to win. Even if Jessica was only temporarily at a disadvantage, the purple man had the confidence to give it a go, because he believed that his hard work would definitely pay off. It's a pity that reality is often crueler than imagined. The scene in front of me is simply the scene of an adult bullying a child. Although it still seems to be in a stalemate, the purple man, who has experienced many battles, can see that the rhythm of the battle is always controlled by Peter. Jessica's punch was purely supported by brute force, without any technique at all. It was purely useless in the battle, and subduing Jessica became a matter of time. The situation at this time is undoubtedly a trap specially created by Peter, in order to let him join the battle as soon as possible. The home field advantage was back in Peter's favor, and it was up to the purple man to make his choice. With the passage of time and seconds, everything is changing, and the original starting point is also quietly changing. At the same time, the purple man felt the aftereffects of launching the self-mutilation ult move gradually. His body's self-healing ability declined rapidly, and many wounds on his body were in a state of bleeding. The occurrence of all this became the last straw that broke the camel's back in my heart. In the current situation, Zurin is very clear that the dawn of victory is far away from him, and the most important thing at this time is to save his life and wait for the day to come. But he also knows that at this time, it doesn't mean that he can leave if he wants to, and he needs to play by ear. So the purple man began to move around frequently, always standing in the blind spot of Peter's sight, actively creating the illusion that he was about to make a move in the next second, thus forcing Peter to give up a way out unintentionally. For a long time, God did not disappoint those who cared. After moving many times, a road leading to the outside world appeared in front of us. The purple man immediately adjusted his shortness of breath to avoid being discovered. He knew very well that the closer to the critical moment, the calmer he should be. Recklessness would only bring death to him. The blood-red eyes observed every subtle movement of Peter, and the body was fully prepared, counting down silently in his heart. At this moment, the purple man didn't hesitate any longer, and rushed forward in one go, displaying the fastest speed in his life. Whether he lived or died depended on this moment. Jessica, swing your fist and smash through everything in front of you. Jessica, who had gradually calmed down under the comfort of the spider silk, once again rioted, and the strength of her fists went up to a higher level. Peter resolutely stopped his plan to continue suppressing Jessica, and moved forward rapidly, sweeping a large amount of spider silk straight ahead, blocking the door leading to the balcony as much as possible. It's a pity that it was still a step too late. Under the impetus of the great terror between life and death, the purple man directly staged a wave of textbook-style perfect running. This speed has already surpassed his previous limit. The purple man walked through the broken glass door. In order to prevent being entangled by the spider silk behind him, he jumped out of the air to adjust his body position, and stretched out his hands to the equipment prepared before. This is a climbing rope that can go directly downstairs. The purple man firmly grasped this last hope of survival, and quickly slid down the rope. Peter was about to follow closely behind, but the purple man obviously anticipated this possibility and assigned tasks to Jessica in advance. After getting rid of the spider silk, Jessica did not launch a reckless attack like the first time, but chose to run to Gwen, who was sleeping soundly beside her. Facing this multiple-choice question, Peter had only one answer. He stopped moving forward and retreated to the room. The blue flame spider silk wrapped around Jessica's body again. After this problem was resolved, Peter rushed to the balcony again, looked downstairs, and saw the figure of the purple man going away. He had already reached the intersection 100 meters away, and the purple man merged into the crowd. At this moment, he seemed to be able to do a job with ease. He even turned his head and met Peter upstairs briefly, with an inexplicable smile on his face, as if saying that he would definitely come back. Grass, a well-known plant, appeared from Peter's mouth. He still underestimated the purple man's desire for survival, and he didn't solve it in the first round. At the same time, he also knew that he was in serious trouble. The characteristic of spider silk was too obvious, and he appeared with his real face again. His real identity would be found out sooner or later. At that time, the purple man will be like a poisonous snake lurking in the depths of the darkness. Whether it is windy or rainy, or severe cold or hot summer, he will always wait quietly. The most frightening state of a venomous snake is just before it makes a move, and no one can predict its next move with absolute certainty. There are only two options for the solution: wait for death in place or take the initiative to attack. At this moment, Peter knew that the purple man had to be sent to Satan to be an imp tonight, and this weekend was destined to be a busy day. Looking at the clock hanging on the wall, it was already past 8 o'clock in the evening. As the countdown begins and it's time to get dry, Peter announces to the body's units that the night has just begun. I can only say that I hope tonight will not be another sleepless night, and he refuses the exercise of morning running. On the other hand, Peter was thankful for his previous two-handed preparation. In the beginning of the fight, he had prioritized placing multiple mini-locators on the purple man. As long as the purple man didn't thoroughly examine and treat his whole body, one of them would definitely be detected. And this credit should be attributed to Mindy's earnest teaching. Under her leadership as a role model, the young and ignorant Peter embarked on a road of no return. An adult like him has to be like a child, who has to use a smile to cover up the deepest sadness in his heart. Another client, Ming Di, expressed a different opinion, which can be summed up in one sentence: "Bah, shameless rookie, get the hell out of here." After returning to the room from the balcony, the first thing Peter did was to double-check the situation of Gwen and Jessica to avoid sequelae. Through a series of routine operations such as turning the eyes, it can be determined that due to the departure of the purple man and the burning blue flames on the spider silk, the previous sudden runaway should be completely over. Although the two are still in a state of sleep, they have gradually calmed down, and generally speaking, they are already developing in a good direction. Because Zurin, a middle-aged man who doesn't talk about martial arts, even sneaked away at a critical moment, in desperation, Peter could only persuade him to rat tail juice. Considering the urgency of the time, he felt that it was time to shake people and activate the relationship network accumulated over the past month. The so-called professional thing is to be handled by professional personnel. Just like when a car repairman goes out, he has a basis to carry a big hammer with him. These are all reasonable and legal requirements, and they should not be excessive. Peter took out his mobile phone from his backpack and opened his address book, suddenly feeling a little embarrassed. The number of phone numbers on it was a bit small, which can be described as a handful. Take a closer look. The ones at the top are the family members Uncle Ben and his wife. The classmates include Harry and Gwen, and the most recent ones are Big Daddy and Mindy and his daughter, as well as Frank the Punisher, who was just added last night. As for the numbers below, they can be collectively categorized as being hidden in the depths of the mobile phone and eating dust, and they have not been called once in 3 years. To sum up, let's sum it up in one sentence: then, there is no more. It's like the author of a novel puts his mind to it, for the unique charm that is under one person and above 10,000 people. Choose to enter the palace to serve the emperor, and become one of the candidates for the future boss of Shichong. The overall feeling is not very good. Could it be that the former reverse courtesan is going to reappear, and he will change his name to Peter Reverse Courtesan Parker in the future? Personally, I think there is a wave of self-explanation here. The relationship between friends is not good enough, and 100 wine and meat friends are not as good as a like-minded teammate. That's right, his friends are a group of people flying around tall buildings every day, busy fighting crimes, saving the world, etc. Well, one fact has to be admitted: He can't make it up anymore. His skin is still not thick enough, and Mindy is better. Peter quickly adjusted his mentality. There was still important work to be done, and the physically and mentally exhausted Zurin was waiting for his meticulous care from afar. The first candidate has already been confirmed in his heart, and the Big Daddy still needs to take action when it comes to finding traces and chasing enemies. After all, it's Big Daddy's old business, and it's a skill to support the family in the society. The quality is guaranteed and guaranteed. Beep, beep, beep. After 3 beeps, the call was successfully connected, but there was a different voice, full of rich emotions. Hello. The user you dialed has been turned off. Please try again later. All the lines prepared in his mind were kept in his mouth like this. Peter could only press the stop button to end the dialing state of the phone. It seems that Big Daddy is still fighting with the police at the forefront, otherwise this phone number would not be easily shut down. The mood at this time is a little awkward, because he was the first to put forward this idea, and this situation was caused by himself, so it couldn't be Mindy's curse. But it doesn't matter, he still has other candidates. After scanning the address book up and down, he decides it's you, the boss who ran together this morning, Frank the Punisher. Click to dial, and the mobile phone began to transmit moving music, so that Peter finally had the opportunity to listen to such a wonderful singing voice. After 1 minute passed, the singing stopped, and the status of dialing ended again. No answer was the final result of this time. The mentality began to feel the illusion of bursting. It was too difficult, and there was no way out for people in this world. Well, in fact, there is one last candidate, which is Mindy, the guest who is currently staying at home and the fish who slipped through the net in the education field. The reason why Mindy was not chosen at the first time was because in the subsequent pursuit battle, she might become an active volcano that exploded at an unknown time and place. For the Purple Man's control, Mindy's resistance is not high, and he may be recruited if he is not careful, and becomes his most powerful combat weapon. If it really comes to that point, Peter cannot give any guarantee, and Mindy's personal safety will be an unknown. And the first round of the match didn't have much reference value. After all, Mindy and Jessica had many differences, especially in terms of physical fitness. The various techniques used on Jessica's body will only be a minor injury, but when transferred to Mindy's body, it will be a life-threatening injury. As for Frank, Peter thought there was nothing to worry about. He believed that even if he was controlled one day, Frank would not be controlled. Instead, he would tear the Purple Man apart in one fell swoop. A man full of flames in his heart is not easy to mess with. But at this point, Peter has no other better choice, only the last truth, firmly believe in it and take it one step at a time. Operating the phone with one hand, skillfully pressing a series of numbers on the screen. After a long time, Mindy's lazy greeting came from the mobile phone. The voice was familiar from the very beginning. It must be in the state of just having a full meal and running to the sofa to lie down. Since it was necessary to ask Mindy to make a move, Peter of course preempted it, otherwise he would suffer alone later in the meeting. Mindy, have you finished your meal? You need to learn about exercising after meals. Remember to exercise more, otherwise you will become fat like a sow. On the other hand, under the influence of her nephew Peter, Aunt May has become more and more bold about the amount of food she eats. No, under Aunt May's warm hospitality, Mindy ate twice as much food as usual for dinner, and was 100% full. After the meal, Mindy didn't want to move at all, and quietly placed the 100-pound body on the soft sofa. Watching the popular TV series, Mindy sometimes sighs with emotion about life. If Big Daddy definitely doesn't have this atmosphere tonight. I also thought of the important reason why I came to Peter's house this time. The big devil is still waiting for her challenge. Mindy couldn't help expressing his distress. The middle-aged handsome guy who used to be handsome has now turned into a stubborn old man. She actually wanted to let her, a well-known superkiller girl in the Dow, go to school, and she had to go to class with a group of brats and play that house-playing game. It was obvious that she was embarrassing, insulting, and trampling on her dignity. Mindy said that she would swear to the death, and resolutely fight the big devil to the death. Just as Mindy was thinking about this great difficulty in life, the mobile phone that was charging on the desk rang. A call is coming, please answer it in time. After several intense psychological struggles, Mindy struggled to get up from the sofa, got the phone as quickly as possible, and returned to the sofa, fully demonstrating her determination to integrate with the sofa. In the process of lying down, I clicked to answer casually, but I didn't expect that before the first sentence was finished, Peter's first wave of provocation had arrived. After listening to this passage, Mindy subconsciously entered the wartime state. It turned out to be Peter, a shameless rookie. he was looking for death. He shot back and said, "Peter, where did you go to play? Did you go to pick up girls, or do you want me to tell Aunt May that I can come back to see my parents some other day?" A series of key questions were raised, but Mindy's combat power remained at the first-class level, and he quickly defeated Peter. The last blow was the deadliest. "And you are really going to be cold this time. This is what my aunt said. Every day I know that I go out and fool around, and I don't want to come back to eat." Blushing, this is Peter's most direct feeling at this time. Of course, he also knew that Aunt May would definitely not say such words, and Mindy must have undergone deep processing, but the general meaning of this was that there was no change. Although he had mentioned the possibility of returning late in advance, he had indeed failed Aunt May's wishes. The well-prepared dinner turned out to be the nephew who had been raised for many years, or the son who did not come back to eat. Aunt May must have such emotions in her heart. Peter quickly expressed his surrender by raising his hands. "I was wrong, Mindy. I have something important to say, so listen to me first." Having come to this point, Mindy guessed that something important had happened, so he fell silent for a moment, stopped what he was saying and got out of the stage. Peter started from the beginning, using the most concise language, and explained the situation and tasks that Mindy was about to face in detail. Before listening to all of them, Mindy immediately took action, and her prediction unfortunately hit the mark again. It is true that good things never work, and bad things are more accurate than one. A carp rolled over and completed all the movements of getting up from the sofa in an instant, without even caring about the shoes on the side, and rushed to the room on the second floor barefoot. Mindy turned on the laptop computer and other necessary equipment, and while waiting for the startup, quickly completed the changeover, putting weapons such as pistols and butterfly knives into the backpack. "Peter, you send the data of the mobile phone, and I will start testing immediately on my side. It has already been sent, and there is some delay in this network." Mindy tapped on the keyboard, checked the received data, and then called up the detailed maps of various areas in the city, and judged by the trajectory of the action. There is a reaction. His moving speed suddenly increased 2 minutes ago. He should have gotten into a car. He hasn't left Manhattan yet. This direction seems to be going to Queens. Looking at the action trajectory displayed on the computer, Mindy expressed his judgment at this time. "By the way, do you have contact with Dad? Dad has acquaintances in the police station, and he can use the strength of the police. I have already called, but the phone is turned off. I guess Uncle Damon's side can't be counted on for the time being. Okay then, you hurry up and deal with the scene, and I'll go out right away, and we'll meet up halfway." Peter just wanted to refute this proposal, and he hesitated before because of this. But when he saw Gwen and Gwen who were still sleeping behind him, he didn't make any more noise. It was true that he needed an extra manpower, and he couldn't take care of both aspects at the same time. When the time comes, he will go after the Purple Man, and Mindy will guard Gwen and the others. He opened his mouth to remind him. "When you go out, remember to tell Aunt May. Lest she worry, you just say you came out to find me. Don't worry about what I do. Make sure everything is in order, and you should hurry up." Before ending the call, Mindy didn't forget to make some complaints, which could be considered as an attempt to ease the slightly tense atmosphere. "Peter, you are such a troublemaker. Do you know that you were wrong? See you later, haha." Peter couldn't help smiling wryly, because he was the one who used this sentence to hurt Mindy not long ago. It's really a turn of events, and now Mindy is in charge. After finishing the call, he sent a text message to Frank. He might have been busy before, so he didn't answer the phone. If it was a text message, he might see it after a while. Peter put the phone away, and looked back. The mess is the most suitable pronoun for the room, or the night view outside the window is more in line with the viewing standard. This business single room has borne the burden that should not exist in this location, and it is about to become the scene of a murder case. All passers-by who could see this scene felt that the place was full of murderous intent, and would choose to call the police in all likelihood. The bullet casings, shards of glass, and traces of blood splashed everywhere on the ground are the most clear evidence. Having no time to think about it, Peter stepped forward to take out the broom, mop, etc. from the tool cart, taking over the previous position of the Purple Man, and started a new round of cleaning. Take out the motivation of running for the labor committee in elementary school back then, and give full play to the spiritual quality contained in it, just to complete the real small goal: clean up the room as soon as possible. After 5 minutes, Peter successfully dealt with the things that should not exist in the business single room, packed them all and scattered them to different places, one by one, and went in and out of the balcony several times for this reason. It is still only a little bit away from tidying up the room. Please believe in the confidence and pride of being a candidate for labor committee. As for the glass door of the balcony, it is definitely not possible to install it. He has communicated with the front desk before, and he will pay the compensation out of his own pocket. Peter sincerely hoped that it would not be too expensive, and his small coffers had suffered certain losses before. If he exceeded the standard again this time, it would mean that his great blueprint for unifying the gaming world would come to nothing. He then opened the free beer and scattered it on the bodies of Gwen and Gwen, temporarily creating the illusion that the two were drunk so as not to waste time. Everything was ready. Picked up the backpack, closed the door. Peter held a sleeping girl in one hand, walked downstairs, and went to the front desk to go through the relevant checkout procedures. In the elevator, the passengers were a little surprised to see this scene, and their eyes seemed to say, "Bastard, let that girl go, let him help." It is worth mentioning that, after confirmation by the staff, Peter only needs to bear part of the cost. For him, this is a rare piece of good news. There is still a glimmer of hope for the great blueprint, and the rest depends on the timing. When the time came to 10, the outside world was already brightly lit in a bustling scene. No one would have thought that just minutes ago, a life and death struggle took place inside the hotel. It was also number 15 minutes after the Purple Man fled. Peter officially checked out, walked out of the hotel gate, and set off for the parking lot. On the way, Peter said, "Hello, Jessica, we can have a chat. Don't be so nervous. My name is Peter Parker, you can call me Peter." In the parking lot where no one passed by, Peter's question seemed a bit sudden, and there was no voice response from the side, which made people think he was talking to himself. If it is placed in the general environment of a hospital, it is estimated that someone will go to the psychiatric department soon to inform that a commission will come to the door. The pace of progress did not stop. Peter believed in his perception, Jessica should be awake at this moment. Because after paying the relevant fees at the front desk, when she hugged Jessica's waist again, a very obvious phenomenon appeared in her keen perception her body subconsciously resisted. Considering the large number of people in the hall at that time, Peter did not ask questions immediately, but asked after he came to the parking lot. Even on the way, due to the loss of the small treasury, he suspected that Jessica had actually woken up a long time ago, and only pretended to be asleep to fool her when she heard that she had to pay. After a while, there was an answering voice from the side. "Hello, Peter, thank you and Gwen for coming, I really appreciate your shot." Jessica's body moved slowly. She slowly broke away from Peter's support, and walked alone. Her steps seemed very stiff. At the same time, she also explained the behavior just now. "It's not that I don't want to move, the me just now can't completely control my body, I can only wait quietly." In fact, Jessica is controlled by the Purple Man. Although she will become a puppet at her command, her consciousness still exists, and she can still see what is happening outside. Using familiar game terms to describe it, it is like entering the fixed plot of the game. The parties can only watch everything quietly, but there is no way to stop things from happening. And the reaction of the body in the hall just now was only the soberness of consciousness, and he hadn't gained control of the body at that time. In this way, Peter understood why Jessica's sudden behavior of knocking out Gwen before appeared. It should be that with the help of the spider silk, she gained a small part of her body control in those few moments. At the same time, she also felt a little bit of embarrassment. Jessica's physical discomfort at this time was probably due to Peter.at that time. In order to achieve suppression as quickly as possible, the force was too strong. For Jessica's sobriety, Peter was naturally very happy. He could finally breathe a sigh of relief temporarily, and now only Gwen was left. Peter told Jessica about the next plan in detail. Jessica raised her hands to show support, and hated the Purple Man who manipulated her. For Gwen's arrangement, Peter chose to return to the Osborne group. He believed that with the company's defense force, the injured Purple Man would not act rashly. This is almost a perfect location, and Peter is very relieved to temporarily transfer Gwen there. Peter quickly started the Harley, and Jessica supported Gwen's leaning body behind, and with the entanglement of spider silk, the three set off to the Osborne group. On Harley, Jessica continued her previous story. This is not only explaining to Peter, but also pouring out the troubles of these days. At that time, the summer vacation had just begun, and a sudden car accident broke the peaceful life. The car accident caused Jessica to lose all her family members. She did not escape this ordeal either, but she was the only one who escaped from the hands of death during the treatment in the hospital. And gaining a strange strength and super physical fitness, this seems to be making a deal with the devil, and the bargaining chip is the life of the whole family. Some of the nurses agreed with this statement, and such rumors completely angered the girl's fragile heart at the time. In a fit of anger, Jessica rushed out angrily, beat up the group of nurses, and was kicked out of the hospital before even paying the medical bills. On the third day after returning home, several laboratories contacted her through the hospital, and through a series of intimidation and threats, asked her to, voluntarily, sign some contracts. Of course, Jessica did not agree, and fought with the visitor, so she was unable to return home, and wandering in the city became the end of the incident. It was rare to save people while wandering, and met Zurin, the enemy of his life. His body was restrained, and he forcibly tore away dozens of lives with his own hands. In the end, Jessica, who was out of control, ran all the way, aimlessly and directionlessly, and didn't stop until she was exhausted and weak. In the next few nights, she couldn't fall asleep for a moment. She could only run to the river and wash her bloody hands side by side. The occurrence of all this made it unbearable for this young girl who had just stepped into university life. She had always remembered the teachings of her parents for 19 years, but she still didn't understand why this happened. As he said that, the tears could no longer be controlled, and kept flowing from his eyes. He couldn't help hugging Gwen tightly in front of him, wanting to cry bitterly. But the body subconsciously lowered the volume of crying, for fear that others would discover his existence, and finally wept uncontrollably. As the only listener, Peter didn't say chicken soup like he used to. He knew that listening quietly at this time was the best comfort for Jessica. Driving into the main road, what Peter didn't expect was that the original traffic jam became more exaggerated, and he even saw that some car owners had begun to indulge in free fighting. The phone rang, and it was Mindy's call. Peter immediately connected the Bluetooth headset, and an excited voice reached his ears. "Peter, good news. The speed of the Purple Man suddenly slowed down just now, and he remained motionless a few minutes later. Then, I checked the section of the road and found out that there was a big traffic jam, and it was in the direction of the Queensboro Bridge. It is said that a lot of vehicles were arbitrarily blocked in the traffic jam section, which made the situation that had just improved worse, and some car owners even fought. The time and speed can be matched, and 9 times out of 10, the Purple Man should be among the car owners in the traffic jam." Peter could probably guess the reason, but it was more radical. He directly identified the Purple Man as the culprit of the traffic jam, and would get out of the car to fight freely. With Zirin's proud and even conceited personality, he has always firmly believed in the style of dealing with things that, there will always be someone who will give in, but who will never be me. Facing a traffic jam, he would definitely accelerate arbitrarily, thinking that no car owner could make him take a step back. On one side are the road rage who have been evolved from office workers for several hours, and on the other side are the purple people who are eager to withdraw from the area to heal their injuries. Then the collision between the two will be incompatible, and the conflict will inevitably escalate, eventually resulting in an extremely bad situation. But for Peter, it would be a picturesque scene, a rare piece of good news. Peter's first thought was that it seems that old man Satan attaches great importance to this little brother, the Purple Man, to the point that he can't forget it. This made him feel even more impatient. Since the old man likes it so much, as a guest, he must try his best to present this thoughtful little gift. After all, I didn't remember to bring a gift with me in the previous visits. This time it was the first gift carefully selected for apology, so I couldn't be late anymore. "Peter, I'm already on my way. I've sent the small program for detection, but you can only check the general direction, and you still need to run it on the computer for detailed viewing. Received. Pay attention to safety. We will gather at the headquarters of the Osborne Group." After hanging up the phone, Peter quickly stepped on the clutch, changed gears, tightened the accelerator, and increased Harley's forward speed again. In the case of more serious traffic jams, Peter surpassed himself and saved half the time compared to when he arrived, and rushed back to the Osborne Group from the hotel in 10 minutes. Park the Harley in the parking space closest to the security room, so that it will be convenient for Mr. Edward to come back to pick up the car after his patrol. Carrying Gwen on his back, supporting Jessica, he walked up the stairs quickly, and successfully sent the two into the lounge through the work card and Harry's name in his hand. According to Peter's observation, Gwen is no longer under the control of the Purple Man, and why she hasn't woken up is probably due to Jessica's sudden blow. As a result, I really entered the sleep state now, and it was still a kind of deep sleep. I didn't feel very sure. The shortest time was 1 or 2 hours, and the longest time was tomorrow morning. The original guarding task was intended to be performed by Mindy, but now that Jessica is awake, it is natural for her to take care of Gwen and let her exhausted body rest as soon as possible. Explain this plan to Jessica, add an extra layer of insurance, and leave Mindy's mobile phone number, so that she can meet with Mindy later. As for Jessica's suggestion that she also want to participate in the pursuit, Peter thinks that this proposal is temporarily unrealistic, and the deep fatigue of the body is already an expression of rejection. Besides, the purple man's shadow has already deeply shrouded the girl's fragile heart. When she really faces it, whether she can shake her fist is an unknown question mark. At the same time, considering the difficulty of chasing, Peter called out the salted fish system that was hanging up. This time the picture has finally changed, it seems to be in response to the previous feedback. There are two big characters of mission, in blood red hanging on the top, and below are Salvation of Genius, unfinished, Gathering of Defenders, unfinished. Blood was falling drop by drop, and it would be really scary if it was opened at night, creating the illusion of someone passing behind. But now Peter just wants to say, who are you scaring? I think I graduated from Shaman University back then, am I proud? Continue to look down to find the target option at the moment, nanosuit, upgradable. Peter quickly clicked the OK button, as long as he was sure fast enough, distress would not be able to catch up with him. It's a pity that the system is indeed the most intimate existence, knowing what should appear, no, the rare mechanical sound can be called the root of all evil. It can be divided into regular upgrades and designated upgrades. It is recommended that the host invest a part of reputation points for designated upgrades. Peter had suspected that the upgrade of this suit would be a huge sinkhole before, and this sentence is undoubtedly the best proof. It seems to be stating calmly, "Sir, I think you may have misunderstood. We are definitely not robbers. We are good citizens who abide by the law." Then he asked in surprise, as if he was joking, "Could it be that robbery will bring in money faster than our business?" Puzzled little eyes appeared one by one, like sharp knives piercing the inquirer's heart, and critical attacks continued to occur. "Pursue, hide." Peter said the direction with a blank face, and said silently in his heart, "Ordinary mind is the most important thing, you must maintain a calm and good attitude." The massive reputation points accumulated some time ago were instantly cleared, and I got a sentence, "The battlesuit has been successfully upgraded and optimized." It made him even more suspicious that the next upgrade would be the beginning of a nightmare, and he got a sentence of, "Very sorry, please continue to work hard." This scene is very familiar, and Peter can't help but recall his youthful years. Under the lure of his friends, the young and ignorant self set foot on the continent of Arad and stood in front of Celia. Peter's body shuddered uncontrollably, making him quickly end this youthful memory and check the new functions of the battlesuit at this time. The optimization of the pursuit is to automatically connect to the host's mobile phone through unknown black technology, so that the battlesuit has all the functions of the mobile phone. From then on, the host no longer needs to take his mobile phone out, which will benefit the host and everyone. The hidden aspect is to optimize the silhouette under the camera, and some nanofactors are reflected around the suit, making Peter in the video a ghostly existence. Reminder: more powerful military cameras and satellites, etc., still need the host to continue to upgrade and optimize. Seeing the 4 characters marked in red, Peter really wanted to slam the system angrily, to relieve the flame of anger in his heart. Unfortunately, due to the emergency, he let the system survive this time, and he persuaded it to do it on its own. After adjusting his state, everything was ready to go, and he walked out of the gate of the Osborne Group headquarters again. The time came minutes had passed since the last time he saw the purple man. Put on the battle clothes at the corner of the street, and call up the detection applet sent by Mindy. Peter confirmed the direction, set off to the destination, and sent the warmest care to the visitors who were running around. On the other hand, the development of the matter is similar to Peter's prediction. The only difference is that it underestimated a situation. The purple man's desire for life completely suppressed the outward release of his nature at a critical moment. At first, the purple man gave a warm reminder in words, but he didn't expect to fight so quickly, and was even approached by a group of car owners. But the sense of danger and the longing for tomorrow reminded Zurin, and he quickly climbed out of the group of car owners with difficulty. Touching the newly added wound at the corner of his mouth, he looked back at the crowd behind him, keeping everyone in mind, and silently made up his mind. "Some trash, wait for me. I will definitely find time to deliver gifts to my door in the next few days, and I can't miss any of them." Without staying too long, he resolutely abandoned the car behind him, put on his hat as a cover, and the purple man resolutely advanced rapidly on the sidewalk. He needs to rush to a section of the road where there is no traffic jam immediately, find a new car, and formulate a new driving route. On the way of running, the purple man suddenly felt a little bit of uneasiness, and looked around carefully without slowing down. After a while, I understood why this uneasiness came about. Some car owners on the side of the road started to take out their mobile phones to take pictures of this large-scale free-for-all fighting scene, and they were going to post it on the internet to share the joy at this time. Zurin knew that he definitely had a chance to be the most explosive point in the video, and his appearance was too conspicuous at this time. Congealed blood was everywhere on the hotel uniform, and the color changed again, now it was black and red. And those boring melon eaters would never let go of such an interesting scene, because the former Purple Man was one of them. And also got an inspiration from it, and used this to design to kill an enemy. The main force is to rely on this group of boring melon-eating groups. Moreover, the peculiar smell on the body also began to emit. If experienced passers-by come across it, they will definitely notice that it belongs to the smell of blood. The Purple Man hurriedly turned a corner and entered the deserted street, barely stopping until a remote alley, panting and observing the surroundings. The bad things came one after another. The wound that had been forcibly stopped before was bleeding again, so the Purple Man had to look for something to bandage. In the end, I found an old medical box next to the trash can, from which I obtained a series of first aid tools such as bandages and hemostatic stickers. Enduring the mixed sour smell from the tools, he fixed the bandage on the wound to stop the blood from continuing to flow out. In such an embarrassing situation, the resentment in Ziren's heart gradually increased, and his emotions were out of control, and he began to curse. That kid who ruined my good deeds, I will definitely kill him, and let him try the feeling of losing his family. That's right, in Purple Man's self-perception, the moment Jessica became her muse, she became his family, she was so confident. As for Jessica's resistance, the Purple Man thought it was just a temporary discomfort, and believed that under his care, changes would happen sooner or later. At this time, the Purple people still think that they are a family destined by God, a God-given husband and wife combination. After a scolding, Ziren also calmed down a little, took out his mobile phone and opened the map software, ready to plan a new forward route as quickly as possible. A latest real-time traffic article jumped out and caught his attention. An unprecedented traffic jam is about to form in Manhattan. This is a historic moment. The Purple Man took a closer look and found that the traffic jam was on the verge of getting out of control. The previous decisive abandonment of the car seemed to be the first wave of the butterfly effect. Car owners continued to follow behind, and began to gather outside to discuss the classic question of which one is better in fighting skills. The atmosphere on the scene is gradually getting better, and chaos has gradually become the mainstream. Coupled with the fact that many websites are eyeing this hot topic and hyping it up, the articles I see come from this group of journalists who work overtime at night. This type of article instantly detonated the internet, sparked a new round of discussion among the people, and caused people who lived nearby to turn into melon-eating crowds. They chose to run out to watch the excitement at night, not daring to get down to business. Even many bold young people who had nothing to do even drove their cars to participate in this feast, for the whole people, laying a more solid foundation for its historic status. The Purple Man browsed through all the relevant information, and deduced a result, a huge bad news. That is the exaggerated description in the article to attract attention, but it really has a chance to be realized this evening: an unprecedented traffic jam in Manhattan. The mood is extremely uncomfortable, wishing to take out a Gatling from the arsenal right now, and go straight to the traffic jam. He wants to kill, shoot one by one. Everyone is a bastard. Regarding the speed of dispatching police from the police station, Ziren gnashed his teeth even more. He ate taxpayers' money all day long, and couldn't do a serious thing. If young people are not prevented from joining, if the situation continues, even if you work all night tonight, you may not be able to open to traffic at 7 tomorrow morning. At that time, it will be the peak period of waves of office workers, and the traffic jam will only continue, and may even become more chaotic. As for the possibility that the boss will considerately approve paid holidays, the Purple Man said that you are daydreaming, and the workers cannot take away any of the capitalists' wool. If you don't take the opportunity to deduct wages and cut leaks, it's considered a face saving, and the workers have to thank the boss and be grateful. Take several deep breaths and forcefully calm down the furious state of mind. The Purple Man knows that the development trend of things is beyond his ability to reverse, and the important thing is to seek his own maximum benefit from it. He found a new angle, and comforted himself. In this way, a new car is readily available, and I can also fish out of its troubled waters, and maybe I can kill my carbine. The Purple Man replanned the plan and analyzed his own condition. One is to treat the wound, and the other is to give the body a sufficient rest. As for the onset of sequelae, according to past experience, the body will gradually improve automatically with the passage of time. But full recovery usually takes 24 hours, so a safe location is essential. Open the map and choose your own safe house. The nearest one is the famous Hell's Kitchen in this area. The reason why the nearest option was not included in the original plan was because the collected information showed that in the last week, various forces were mixed in Hell's Kitchen. Although it looked peaceful, The Purple Man knew very well that it was like an active volcano accumulating power, which might erupt at any time. It's definitely not a good place to recuperate. The Purple Man naturally ruled it out immediately and chose to go to the safe house in Queens. But in today's big traffic jam, going to Queens is an unattainable dream, and it doesn't meet the most urgent needs at the moment. At the same time, there is another important factor to consider. For the video shooting just now, Zurin had to plan for the worst. An old colleague from the past was watching him again through the video. And Hell's Kitchen is a safe house carefully prepared by the Purple Man, which stores a large number of weapons, comparable to a small arsenal. These unexpected circumstances made Hell's Kitchen the most suitable answer among his current choices. Without too much entanglement, the Purple Man put away his mobile phone, and ran to the Treasureland. A row of trash cans placed horizontally, found some items to conceal his identity, and wiped them directly on his body. Walking towards the intersection, he wants to borrow a car from the young man. Under the fair deal, he believes that the future flower of the motherland will be very happy to lend a helping hand. The purple people who set out firmly did not know one thing. In fact, the huge traffic jam outside was not an accident, but an accident caused by their human operation. And they are Mrs. Gao from the Hand, high-level police officers, people from all walks of life in the gang, and Jin Bing, who has achieved multi-party alliance. A week ago, a large number of drug dealers died in the auto repair shop, which led to the birth of a carnival about profit and power. At first, the participants involved in the incident unanimously chose to block all information, and the countermeasures fully reflected what is the tacit understanding among peers, and they all held the idea of not letting the rich water flow to outsiders. Trying to let people in the circle digest this feast of money by themselves, and quietly compete for the vacated drug market. But I didn't expect that the follow-up of the incident could not be handled in place, and the commotion was too loud, which attracted the attention of all walks of life, and also attracted the arrival of the real boss behind the police. As a result, the police gained strong support. With their backs against the big bosses, they aggressively announced strong intervention, which made this competition even more difficult, and once became a stalemate of mutual confrontation. However, the speakers behind the scenes look at things a little differently. Their vision is to stand higher and see farther. In the plan, the word pattern runs through it deeply, showing a different style. They accepted the police as a new player very quickly and followed the new rules of the game. I also know one thing well, isn't it that the police want to improve their performance in the second half of the year, so that everyone in the bureau can have a good year. The behind-the-scenes talkers are a group of sensible businessmen, who know that their interests are always greater than the sky, and they will definitely make it clear, legal and compliant. Let the police eat up their faces and leave as a successful person. They took the initiative to give way to the boss behind the police, quickly made a decision, and hyped the arrival of this feast, allowing a large number of forces to enter the venue like a tide. And the small and medium-sized forces also deeply understand the truth that wealth are sought in danger, and they enter the market decisively, frequently resorting to various methods, and fighting for the touching interests. And under the guidance of a real wise man, he was very fortunate to stage a big show of washing his hands out of the gold basin, so that the younger brother took turns to become the eyeliner of the police, using the power of the police to attack opponents. The police naturally accepted everything, and the credit for this deeply attracted every police officer involved in the operation. It has become a style of doing things rather than let them go. All of a sudden, it was the rhythm of your singing and my appearance. All kinds of monsters and ghosts appeared, and overturning and being overturned became a daily routine. Of course, some of them did not want to abide by it, but under the attack of many big bosses, they could only bow their heads and admit their mistakes. After all, fists are still not hard enough. If you want to eat delicious meals, you need to abide by the rules after serving the table. A week later, the bigwigs headed by Jin Bing and Mrs. Gao acted in tacit agreement and deliberately set up a new situation. The location is set in Hell's Kitchen, which has been a thorn in the police's side for many years. One is to completely withdraw some of the forces that are still fishing in troubled waters and attempting to speculate. The second is to use the power of the police to reopen the gate of Hell's Kitchen. The third is that this credit is enough to cause divisions within the police and plant the signs of striving for credit. This is an overall situation that can kill many birds with one stone, and the big guys with the same intention are very happy to reach this cooperation. So, on Sunday night, the bigwigs ramped up their hype, setting the stage for who will be the next millionaire in Hell's Kitchen. The threshold is extremely low, and the slogan is that you come if you are destined, and you will be the next millionaire. At the same time, in order to prevent the situation from getting out of control, the strength of both sides should reach a relatively balanced state, and there should be no tendency to crush. Therefore, the first necessary condition for the success of this overall situation is to cause traffic inconvenience in Manhattan. Only in this way can the speed of police support be greatly reduced. The bosses instruct their younger brothers to drive a large number of cars out during the rush hour, intentionally causing many traffic accidents, leading to the precursor of a big traffic jam. It also makes it actively increase the urgent mood of the car owner, making the whole atmosphere jump left and right on the verge of anger, and detonate at a critical moment. This is also the main reason why the car owners at the scene exploded at the scene before the purple people really used their abilities. And the younger brothers who were performing tasks around did not expect it to go so smoothly. If there is a reward for meritorious service afterwards, after receiving a large amount of bonuses, the younger brothers on this section of the road should all share part of it with the purple people. What's even more coincidental is that the mastermind behind the entrustment of the purple man to kidnap Gwen is the same person as the planner of the overall situation, Jin Bing. Because they need to establish their own prestige, so what is more effective than directly slapping the police, but there are certain limits to be grasped. And in this interaction between the police and the people, Jin was very successful and formed a brotherly relationship of mutual help and mutual assistance with multiple bureau chiefs. During a friendly exchange, Jin got a hint that several director brothers were not optimistic about George Stacy, and the merits of this man were a bit tempting. And George Stacy is Gwen's father, and he is also in line with Jin Bing's previous leeway standards. His position is not too big or too small, just right, and he is a perfect goal. The director brother also proposed that he wanted to see the dedicated director George enter a multiple-choice question, asking him to choose between fighting crime and his own daughter. At that time, no matter which option George chooses, the goals of both parties will be considered to be achieved. This is simply a seamless plan. Jin Bing, who has been a villain for many years, couldn't help but give a thumbs up at this moment and say the word absolutely, deeply praising the brilliance of the director's brother. Therefore, the purple man hurried to Hell's Kitchen, which seemed to be the most suitable choice, but in fact it was just jumping from one fire pit to another, just like leaving a wolf's den and entering a tiger's den. It has once again fully verified one thing with facts: disasters and bad luck will never act alone. They are always in a relationship that goes hand in hand, and no one will leave the other. At this time, Zurin successfully borrowed a new travel tool from the young man by virtue of his gentle temperament and sharp language. Considering the traffic jam on the road, he also borrowed a refitted motorcycle from the Bosozoku, and turned into a middle-aged Bosozoku who followed the trend. On the road, the purple man was advancing crazily, because his body's intuition frequently produced a sense of crisis, which made him more and more restless. He even began to suspect that the god of death was behind him, chasing him, wanting to walk with him. On the other hand, wearing the upgraded and optimized nanosuit, Peter felt that the whole person was extraordinarily different, and he let himself go temporarily this night. In this way, he specially climbed up a tall building, showed the starry sky and himself the long-suppressed soul of secondary school, and shouted loudly, "I'm coming." After finishing speaking, he assumed a diving posture and jumped straight ahead, making a 360-degree rotation, and everything swept past him. In midair, strands of spider silk emerged from his hands, heading straight for the building in front of him, his body moving forward like a swing. Randomly shuttle between high-rise buildings, and run rampant between the starry sky and the earth at night, which gradually calmed Peter, who was originally anxious. This is an extraordinary feeling. At that moment, it surpasses the pleasure between life and death, and countless people will fall into it unconsciously. When passing a residential building, Peter also heard a story happened by the spider's silk. A child saw his passing figure outside the window, and hurried to share it with his mother, bragging loudly, "Mom, guess what I saw just now? It's Superman, and Superman is flying around outside." As he spoke, he made corresponding movements and dubbing, and the whole person swooped directly into his mother's arms. The mother quickly took her cub, patted the back gently, squatted down and encouraged, "Really, my baby? Then you are so lucky today. You must be an obedient baby later, okay?" "Okay, Mom." The child nodded solemnly with his eyes wide open to show his seriousness at the moment, and the childish voice emphasized again, "I am a child who met Superman, and I have become an adult." In the baptism all over the sky, Peter's mental state returned to its peak, without a trace of anxiety and uneasiness, full of confidence and determination to win. Peter flicked the spider thread forward, allowing himself a moment of rest on the roof, and then refocused his attention on the screen in front of him. On the above, the change of the purple man's action route is clear at a glance. If you take a closer look, you can take out its trajectory and direction separately, and put it on the map to make a rough estimate. Looking at the second half of the journey along the map, I found that it was this place again, with an unusually familiar name, Hell's Kitchen. The first feeling is that there is a predestined relationship, or an unbroken fate. At this moment, he really wants to yell again, "You are really doing evil, God, you." Back to the topic, Peter carefully analyzed the map. The best choice is naturally to intercept halfway, but we still have to prepare for the worst. Strands of spider silk reappeared on the top floor, and Peter rushed out in an instant. One of the top 10 late-night mysteries in the city, Bungee Jumping Maniac, was officially launched, and it has frequently topped the list since then. After arriving at the edge of Hell's Kitchen, Peter, who was advancing at high altitude, felt that something was wrong. The most important point is that the spider sensor is also sending a vigilant forecast to the body, and there seems to be a message in the ear. There are tens of thousands of roads, and safety is the first. Walking in the air is not standardized, and relatives cry. One of Peter's strengths is that he is good at following other people's advice. As the saying goes, he is a teacher who never forgets the future. There are some experiences that should be listened to. Peter resolutely followed the choice of his heart, did not enter Hell's Kitchen immediately, and found an optimal location for observation around. I don't know if I don't see it. I was shocked when I saw it. It is used to describe Peter's mood at the moment. Looking around, there are all policemen in the streets and alleys. At a small stall in front of the alley, a few teenagers with afro hair were bargaining with the boss, clearly planning to have a king's meal. After the discussion went nowhere, as expected of a young man, his temperament was impulsive enough, and he directly staged an unnamed bad movie in the Hollywood market with multiple bosses. The perfect combination of free combat and art of war was used by thieves with ease, and a large number of people used a series of quintessential tactics such as fighting and retreating, attacking east and west, and successfully obtained rich results and fled away. Peter guessed that the bosses were all plainclothes policemen, and their instinctive movements were not covered up, revealing their true identities. But there is one thing to say, if one day these afro heads know the true identity of the boss, they will definitely feel extremely grateful and proud. After all, in front of a group of policemen, he resolutely carried out behaviors such as eating bully meals, stealing, and assaulting the police, and then left swaggeringly, only to end up with minor injuries. Such a brilliant record will probably be boasted for several years in all likelihood, otherwise I will be sorry for this rare opportunity. At this moment, Peter's attention has turned to other places, because he found a more exaggerated situation. Black figures flashed in several remote corners. After several inspections, he couldn't fully see his true face, so he immediately moved his location to find a new viewing angle. Waiting patiently at the new location, those figures flashed past again, and this time Peter was absolutely sure that they were ninjas from the hand. But the only strange thing is that these ninjas are not holding sharp steel knives, but paper and pens, and some are holding cameras. All these signs, as well as the shutdown of Big Daddy, made Peter very suspicious that this might be a new round of struggle between the police and drug dealers. Here will become a new battlefield that is about to start. Jin Bin, Bullseye, and even Mrs. Gao from the hand will also end up fighting with the police for 10 rounds of exciting battles. Turning on the screen, I found that the speed of the Purple Man was one step faster than expected, and he was already driving towards the center of Hell's Kitchen. In fact, before entering Hell's Kitchen, Zurin also noticed that the atmosphere here is very different through years of experience. But I also know that I have no choice. This is also a gamble with my life. As long as I hurry up, all this is still possible. As long as he has a safe house and plenty of weapons, even if it is stormy outside, it will be the same for him, and he is confident to persevere to the end. Holding the high belief, the Purple Man tightened the accelerator tightly, relying on the brute force in his heart to rush forward desperately, and the anger continued to burn in his body. And Peter naturally has no extra choice. People have to pay for the carelessness of the years. The accident in the first round has already doomed the hard work in the future, and the truth of conservation is everywhere. Focusing on observing the location of the ninja, Peter uses the principle of perspective difference to lurk, and sticks to the principle of silent action. They passed smoothly along the way, avoided the eyeliners set up in many places, and recorded all relevant information through the battlesuit. After all, if the speculation is correct, this information will be of great help to Big Daddy, and even help him reverse the situation at the critical moment of life and death. Peter called Big Daddy again, wanting to share the information in his hands, but unfortunately the result remained the same, and the phone was still turned off. Just when I was in a dilemma, a flash of light flashed in my mind, and a plan to get the best of both worlds was born. And Mindy is the best candidate to implement the plan. Because it was originally not planned to let Mindy participate in the battle, and now the rhythm of the police and gangster battle is suddenly added. Peter's idea of refusing Mindy to go to the front line as even more determined. Peter quickly sent these kinds of pictures to Mindy one after another, and assigned tasks to the girls who were on their way. Let her contact Big Daddy regularly from now on until she gets in touch, and make a few more calls to the police on the way, so as to be a good citizen who cares about the police. As a little witty ghost, Mindy naturally saw through the sinister intentions easily. Although he had the intention of resisting in his heart, he still knew that the matter was important. Mindy immediately complied with the arrangement, and raced against time to start the operation, took out the computer to find the emergency contact means between the father and the daughter, and explained the situation at this time. And drove the motorcycle around the long distance to avoid the camera recording, searched for various public phone booths along the road, and took out the voice changer to say hello to the police uncles. Peter continued to move forward, while taking pictures of the situation everywhere, while watching the purple man's route change direction. After constantly flying over the eaves and walls, he found that the distance between him and the purple man was getting closer and closer, and his body subconsciously moved faster again. Suddenly the icon symbolizing the purple man stopped moving, and Peter understood that this meant that the purple man was 100 meters away. He quickly rushed to the top of the tall building, looked left and right, and finally at a corner, he saw that familiar figure from the back, and he couldn't help saying, "I finally found you." Peter breathed a sigh of relief temporarily. Now that the person has been found, the next process will be relatively easy. Instead of attacking immediately, he became more cautious and followed closely behind the purple man. Peter hadn't forgotten that there were ninjas from the hand nearby, and the fight with the purple man must have been a big deal. It was impossible to expect those ninjas to ignore them. Although he is not afraid of one-to-many, if he is entangled by ninjas, the purple man may take the opportunity to escape, which must be taken into consideration. Once the purple man escapes again, he will definitely realize that a mini locator has been placed on his body, and at that time, he can really only sigh. Peter is going to switch from offense to defense, and he still has to be ready to fight all the time, and he can't relax for a moment in 24 hours. The existence of various factors made Peter suppress the idea of making a move as soon as possible. He knew very well that this attack must not have the slightest possibility of failure. And at the current speed, he thinks that there must be a safe house set up by the purple man nearby, and he will definitely let go of his vigilance when entering the house, and that is the real best time to make a move. Just as Peter followed closely behind, the purple man also felt a sense of danger. However, I didn't realize the real source of this danger. I just thought it was caused by the surrounding environment. After all, I also felt the same way when I first came in. The onset of sequelae had a great impact on Zurin, not only the weakness of the body, but also the imbalance of mentality. If it was the usual purple man, he would seriously consider the possibility of Peter catching up. But now he is completely deceived, and directly votes to deny it, thinking that Peter is just a lucky kid who happens to have the ability to restrain him. As long as there is sufficient preparation, this little kid in adolescence may definitely be his opponent, so how dare he come to him again? The purple man moved on, looking around at a crossroads, and recognized the iconic symbol from which the memory had been made. He knew that the safe house was about to arrive, so he couldn't wait to speed up his pace, rushing to the place of his own hope in one go. After a while, the purple man stopped in a 3-story house and looked up. It was ordinary, the most common type of house in this area, and the first impression it gave was that it was lacking in vitality. This is exactly the kind of situation that the purple people want to see the most at present. There is a high probability that no one has lived here for a long time, and it also means that the safe house located underground is still intact. Zurin can tell the truth. In fact, he felt extremely regretful after the arrangement was completed a year ago. At that time, it did not achieve the value it should have. It was a loss-making investment. In addition, the law and order in the area was too chaotic, and some unknown people would occupy the house at will, and the purple people quickly abandoned the place. However, the purple man felt fortunate at this time. Due to time constraints, he did not move out the supplies inside, but only took a small part and left. Therefore, the current safe house has the ability to experience various evaluations, and it is still at a first-class level, which fully meets the urgent needs of the purple people. Go around the main entrance, come to the small door on the right wall, get a key from the corner by magic, open the iron door that has been dusty for a long time, and walk in hastily. At the moment of stepping in, the purple man's anxious heart got a moment of tranquility, and the energy of the whole person was extraordinarily leisurely compared with the previous second. Before the purple man could fully enjoy the tranquility, he heard movement from below, which was in the direction of his safe house. The saddest thing in the world is to finally find hope from despair. It is obvious that you were about to grasp hope 1 moment ago, but reality tells. No, it should be to inform him that hope is shattered. Please leave as soon as possible here. The Purple Man is a warrior of this kind of life. His originally relaxed state became tense in an instant, his attention was stretched to the limit, and his tired brain started up again. The rage caused the body to tremble uncontrollably, and the deep part of the heart kept roaring. Which bastard gave him the courage? The eyes opened extremely wide at this moment, the blood red filled the entire eyeball, and even the blood streaks could be seen clearly. The Purple Man looked around very carefully, and immediately saw the traces that he hadn't noticed before, such as the water droplets on the handle of the front door, the messy dust on the ground, and a few paper towels on the stairs. These many remaining traces all indicate the fact that someone has lived here, and now a safe house located underground has been found. Under the huge impact of the facts in front of him, the anger ignited every part of the Purple Man's body, as violent as a volcanic eruption, and there was only one target left in the brain. Immediately rushed down to the first floor, and presented the most magnificent performance for the group of braves, who dared to break into the safe house, and paid homage to the life that was about to die.